As the two chatted, when they entered the Pure Heart Peak, they resumed formalities as they then fell off their flying swords. While flaming Eastern Island seemingly had blistering heat, this Pure Heart Peak, contrarily, was indeed a refreshing coolness that set the heart, as its name suggested. It was an entirely different scene, surrounded by emerald green, mellow and fresh water, with rare birds and beasts that could be seen from time to time. The main peak's environment was even more enveloped within a boundless mist, a school abundant with the colors of spring. Yang Yenyu said flaming Eastern Island's network of volcanoes was continuous. Like Fire Cloud Peak, the environment was broiling hot, the temperature higher by more than 40 degrees, the highest reaching 100 degrees. If ordinary cultivators did not wear precious jade, they simply would not have any way to support themselves for too long. Something like Pure Heart Peak was even created in ancient times when ancestral masters exerted their powers and secret arts. It could be said to be a genuine paradise. In addition, this kind of place was the residence of the headmaster. They did not walk for long when an immense ring-shaped corridor appeared before them. Along its edge at intervals of 2 zhang were red pillars, and the pillars were carved with coiling dragons. The dragons spat raging flames, and within the conflagration, an arched door took shape. Following the corridor onward, they passed by each and every door and fire dragon pillar, and only then did Su Xing discover, within every door, each possessed a unique and refined courtyard. The scope of these courtyards were complex, with the sword storage pavilion, the literary path, 2 the extreme technique hall, 3 weapon tempering hall, the 100 opportune courtyard, 5 and so forth. Only through Yang Yenyu's introductions did he realize that the tool refinement, quenching hardening, spell carving, and the others of these courtyards and pavilions embodied a series of the 4 styles sect's most common sights. Without mentioning anything else, speaking from the scale, small courtyards like this perhaps were not less than 100 in number, so the former power of the 4 styles school could be clearly seen. It was a pity that these rows upon rows of numerous halls were nowadays pathetically few in disciples. Some pavilions were even without people to stand guard, covered completely in dust. Only after walking for a long while did they see the end of this corridor. There was an incomparably towering white wall, and under it a door opened. There were 2 very thick wooden door panels, their heights reaching 10 zhang. The door was painted with the 4 styles of wind, thunder, water, and fire, serious and vivid, a supernaturally fine craft. Stepping out of this door just now, Su Xing held his breath, looking at everything before him in disbelief. What he was before him was a super-huge plaza, as if he stood in a plain that had no end in sight. Su Xing estimated it was at least the size of 3 Tiananmen squares. The surface was completely paved with white marble, reflecting and sparkling. One look would make people feel insignificant. From far away, a white cloud that was like muslin unexpectedly drifted underfoot. In the center of the public square, at intervals of several zhang were placed massive copper cauldrons, divided into 3 rows with 3 each for a total of 9 arranged according to some pattern. From within the cauldrons, smoke drifted out from time to time, the scent distinct and not dispersed. In the plaza was a several zhang tall gigantic inscribed stele that was carved from white jade, and in the middle was carved a relief sculpture of a fairy entering the mundane world. He saw that fairy entrusting a white divine sword to a young man half kneeling below, who caught the blade. Upon the inscribed stele was a stone sword that was exactly the same as in the relief sculpture. This sword is called Heaven and Earth of the 4 Styles. 6. Legend says a goddess conferred it upon the ancestral master that opened the school. We comprehended the 4 refinement styles of today from the wind, thunder, water, fire on the sword. That is precisely this school's history. Seeing that Su Xing was a disciple of the master and that his future held abundant prospects, Yang Yenyu very meticulously presented things. The Heaven and Earth of the 4 Styles sword is indeed a sect-protecting treasure. At the end of the plaza was a stone bridge, without foundations, stretching to the sky. One end was connected to the plaza, directly inclining upwards into the abyss of clouds, like a dragon leaping through the heavens. Its grandeur was proud and aloof, and water flowed unceasingly from the ends, incomparably clear. Walking along this endless bridge, they ascended more than 100 steps. The representative giant beast of the four styles, the copper cauldrons, towered nearby. 7 afterwards, they arrived at the highest peak, the location of Styles' Heart Hall. 8. Su Xing's heart said this four styles school deserved the name of the ancient Nine Dragons' great sect. Although it had declined, the remaining buildings were timeless in their manifested splendor. It was just that currently it had an additional trace of desolation. Upon the main hall, there stood several dozen people who all seemed to be under the four-style school. Before everyone were placed 7 large sandalwood chairs, with one each on the left and right, and another position in between at the very front. Above, there actually sat only 6 people, and only the last seat on the right row was empty without anyone sitting in it. At this time, everyone in the hall was currently in discussion, seeming deliberating something. The young Yin, who guided Su Xing, tidied her robes outside the door, respectfully saying, "Headmaster, all master uncles." 9 disciple Yin received orders to bring the disciple who held onto Master Uncle Qingshan's token. "You may continue." A dense voice started to talk. Su Xing walked into the hall, and several expressions sharp as falcons looked towards him, seemingly to look at him clearly from head to toe. The cultivators in this main hall nearly were the peaks of the four-style school, and Su Xing remained calm and collected, secretly sizing them up. By means of Wu Xinjie's seeing clearly innate skill, not a single one of these cultivators' cultivations did not stand out as prominent in the current Su Xing's eyes. Everyone was galaxy middle stage to late stage, and the one sitting in the middle with a fire-refining robe, seemingly different in spirit, was an old man with eyes like candle flames and the highest cultivation, already at supercluster middle stage. It was just that he saw his aged essence qi was dark, just like he was in his declining years. He was precisely the four-style sex headmaster, the Taoist master Xiantian. 10. Yuqi Qingshan was just the pinnacle tool refinement scholar of the four-styles school that Yang Yanyu said. After they lost his trail, those within the sect previously wrung their wrists and sighed more than once, but when they received news that Yuqi Qingshan's apprentice was entering the door, the entire four-styles school was astonished. The Taoist master Xiantian immediately convened the first seats of the four-styles spirit peaks for discussion. Seeing Su Xing was calm and collected, like a dry well. 11. The Taoist master Xiantian inwardly sighed that a master under him had chosen an extraordinary apprentice. Looking at that bearing, it seemed he had seen gales and billows, imposing and steady, his expression calm. He truly was a good successor to be used for tool refinement. Originally, he still had some doubts, but now, he completely believed Su Xing was Yuqi Qingshan's apprentice. 12. In any case, even if he was not, it did not matter. The four-styles school already had not seen such a gifted and outstanding disciple for a very long time. A nebula late-stage cultivation was not low. "You're called Su Xing?" the Taoist master Xiantian asked. "This one beneath you precisely is Su Xing," Su Xing reported. "And how did it find you?" Su Xing regurgitated his speech again, and if nothing else, it was the stereotypical chance encounter, with that kind of unavoidable, "Boy, I see you hold much potential," and such routine. In Lianxin continent, the disciples received this way were many. The Taoist master Xiantian also asked Su Xing how his master fell. Su Xing did not directly at all say he had died, instead saying that after his master left behind the token and secret arts, Master let him set out for the four-styles school while he swam once more into the clouds. Saying as much was to omit unnecessary troubles, and lying too much made it easy for him to become exposed. The expression of everyone present was bleak, already knowing everything towards Yuqi Qingshan bode ill, with no positive signs. "Did your master leave behind any other things?" the Taoist master Qingshan asked in a low voice. "None." Su Xing shook his head. "Like this, ah." The Taoist master Xiantian was regretful. Headmaster, since Master Uncle Yuqi Qingshan commanded him to come to this sect alone, it is not possible for him to practice by himself. I had better re-enroll him into the school. A full-bearded, capable man's deep voice said. His eyes looked at Su Xing like he was eyeing a treasure. Just as his fingertip was about to point at Su Xing, he was blocked by the Thunder Roll Peak, first seat Yijing, 13 beside him, who rushed out in front of him. He said to the Taoist Master Xiantian, Senior Brother Headmaster, today, the moment I saw this child, I felt that he and I are kindred spirits, and seeing his practice is the clinging fire introductory cultivation method. It actually complements the thunder roll cultivation method very well. Is it not even more suitable with my heavenly fire peak? The big man was displeased. For the long-established four-style school, actually because it was nowadays cut off from the rest of the world, it had been blockaded by the Azure Dragon territory, so disciples could only be sought after in the dozen or so villages on flaming Eastern Island. Think about how miserable that was. The disciples already under the school was a yellow unable to reach the green, and now seeing Su Xing's cultivation had reached this high of a nebula late stage, he simply was regarded by Master Uncle Yuqi Qingshan as a piece of delicious cake. It could not be said for sure what else that tool refinement scholar left behind for him. From what I see, he is wise and steady, calm and quick-witted. The Watermoon Peak actually could not be better. The first seat of Watermoon Peak also butted in. The Taoist Master Xiantian looked at their squabble, wrinkling his brow. Quarreling into this fashion, what a scandal! A voice cold as pure frost suddenly penetrated into the main hall. The door opened. A dignified and refined beautiful woman with a hair bun delicately walked in leisurely. The quarreling individuals in the main hall immediately shut their mouths. Junior Sister Yueke, why have you left seclusion? The Taoist Master Xiantian rose to go greet her. This beauty's position within the four-style school was not low. The first seats of the four styles mountain peaks all continuously smiled awkwardly. Junior Sister Yueke? Su Xing's brows jumped. This woman was Ju Yueke. 14. Within the letters Yuqi Qingshan left behind, he had found many records regarding things about Ju Yueke. The relationship between the two seemed to be not simple. Su Xing surreptitiously looked her up and down. Black clothes bounded white, a dancing form that birthed wind, long brows wholesomely beautiful, a manner that slightly looked down on others. Senior Brother Headmaster. What? I heard that Senior Brother had an apprentice that came to enter the school. How could Junior Sister not be informed? The beauty lightly smiled. The Taoist Master Xiantian was embarrassed. He did not call for this junior sister of his because he knew she and Yuqi Qingshan had some things that were not spoken of clearly between them. From the surface of the two, one was a heaven-clinging divine fire, and the other was a heavens-will water flame, an intolerable combination of sharply contrasting elements. However, he also knew this relationship of competition was more or less somewhat vague. When Yuqi Qingshan originally set out to search for a disciple, this junior sister was depressed and sad for a time. The fact his apprentice returned signified that Yuqi Qingshan had already suffered a mishap. Otherwise, how could he have possibly alone be given his personal token? 16. The Taoist Master Xiantian was also afraid this junior sister would take her anger out on the talented apprentice the four-style school had so much difficulty receiving. Senior Brother Headmaster, you can relax. Yueke has already reconciled herself about him. Originally, in spite of hearing obstructions, he was determined to go to the Azure Dragon territory to receive an apprentice. Yueke then knew everything boded ill for him. Ju Yueke calmly smiled. Master Ant 17 Yueke. Su Xing bowed his head.
N.
Ju Yueke sized him up, nodded, and mildly said, not bad. He actually has some insight, finding a good disciple, when he was at death's door. He was always better off compared to our being trapped here to death. Such a pity. Senior Brother Headmaster, turn him over to this junior sister's school. Ju Yueke said. Senior Sister Yueke, it has been very difficult these past 2 years for a gifted and outstanding youngster to come, and you have already signed him away. The first seat of Watermoon Peak complained. Lianxin's 18 progress these past several years has been comparatively great, but his temper is somewhat antisocial. Although weapon refinement masters are all this way, I certainly would not want to see something like a second senior brother Qiankun. On one hand, the cultivation of the two is close to being kindred spirits, and on the other, we can have Lianxin take care of Su Xing's potential in weapon refinement. Is it not too excessive for Yueke's school to have these two apprentices? Yueke's smile was like a lotus flower, uncontaminated by filth. The others had no alternative. Yueke then brought Su Xing to the place where he should live. That was somewhere more remote than Pure Heart Peak, a place known as Mirror's Flower Stream, the mountain stream of a valley. A white curtain extended into the sky. 2 ranges upon ranges of mountains, verdant and lush bamboo forests hid the sky and covered the earth, an environment that was even quiet and secluded. Did your master have any other words? Yueke feigned indifference as she asked. With this mood, how could Su Xing not know what she was thinking about? He seized the chance to console her. Actually, I often heard Master keep saying a phrase over and over, but I just do not know what purpose it has. What phrase? Yueke's brows rose. With this life, I shan't waste. Yueke was shaken. She lowered her head, and Su Xing could not tell what she was thinking about. The winding path went through a remote place, and then he saw a bamboo house. He saw outside the house was an open space where a scholarly youth was currently practicing something. The posture his palm danced through was quick and skillful, and several seals later, a blue flame appeared in his hand while the other hand had a red flame. Lianxin, Yueke called. The youth stowed his hands, and seeing them, he very deferentially welcomed them, crisply yelling, "Master! I shall give you an introduction. He is Tang Lianxin, and henceforth he is your senior brother. This is Su Xing, a new disciple received for master. Properly acquaint yourselves." Yueke made the introductions. Tang Lianxin? His name really was very effeminate. Su Xing restrained himself from smiling, scrutinizing the youth before him. With delicate features, he had grown into a scholarly elegance, a contrarily charming child. It was just that he looked rather cold, his expression awfully loathsome, seemingly as if he did not like this junior brother. "Hello." He faintly cupped his fist, his etiquette very precise. Starting from this day, guide junior brother Su Xing according to what Master 3 has arranged. Take good care of him, and as far as the established rules of my school, stay for a moment and explain them to him. Disciple understands. And another thing, Yueke said, from now into the future, Master hopes you two can speak more in the future, interact more. Master certainly does not want to let others crack jokes when they see you two. Disciple engraves this to memory. Yueke was still not finished speaking. One last thing. From this day onwards, you two must eat, live, rest, and work together. Suffer misfortune together. Enjoy blessings together. Regard each other as brothers in a family, do you understand? Master. Could it be you want me to sleep with him? Tang Lianxin's brow creased, his forehead somewhat in rejection. Even if it was not him, Su Xing himself felt this was awkward. His heart said this beautiful woman could not possibly be a fujoshi, could she? Making 2 grown men rest together under a large blanket. Both sleeping under a large blanket is unnecessary, right? Su Xing awkwardly said. Tang Lianxin nodded his head. Is there a reason why brothers cannot sleep on one bed? Could it be you two are afraid you will be unable to cut off your own sleeves? 5. Yueke coldly said. Su Xing thought, fuck. He indeed had to concede defeat. Lianxin, you have come to this school for 2 years. Other than teacher, you have never interacted with other people. Although your innate talent in tool refinement exceeds others, you use your time on this field. Doing so is not altogether inexcusable, but teacher still hopes you can be more open and clear, understand? Yueke's eyes contained some regret. Young lord, she is very much like a stepmother. Wu Xinjie joked. Disciple follows your orders. Tang Lianxin cautiously replied. And tomorrow, teacher will again come to see you too. Yueke nodded, stepped onto a flying sword, and thus soared into the air. Tang Lianxin looked at Su Xing, locking his brows. He suddenly asked, Junior brother Su Xing, Did you truly come to sincerely learn tool refinement? Of course, heaven and earth can attest to that. Su Xing was calm. Then good. Though Tang Lianxin seemed unwilling, he still simply introduced Yueke's established rules for the school. Yueke, the Four Styles School's junior sister, could be counted as one of the sect's two great elders, the other elder of which was Yueke Qingshan. In the Four Styles School, she was a peak tool refinement master, an expert in the heavenly water heart flame, whose divine intent for refining magic weapons was extremely powerful. Yueke resided in the heavenly water mansion. 6. The teaching style she had for apprentices was to have them develop on their own, regularly arranging at set intervals some assignments for those under her school that were required to be complete within a time limit. If it was not accomplished, the first time would double the required objective. The second time was direct expulsion from the school. The rules were extremely harsh, and in her words, if even her most simply arranged assignments were unable to be completed, then the student did not have any qualifications to study alongside her. Thus, besides Tang Lianxin, Yueke's current disciple was just Su Xing. The rest of the time, as long as the sect did not forbid it, there were no restrictions, so he actually was very free. This just happened to be aligned with Su Xing's intentions. Of course, Su Xing had only just come. Whether or not he could stand firmly still depended on after a month. This refining soul technique. 7. Heavenly talent and earthly treasure reflections. 8. Tool refinement school of thought. 9. Tool refinement magic circle. 10. Five elements theory. Tang Lianxin rustled through and brought out several dozen thick books from inside the house, placing them one after the other into Su Xing's hands while saying, "These are the most basic learnings for a tool refinement master. The refining soul technique is used to cultivate your nature. What tool refinement masters pay particular attention to is exactly the tranquil and even-tempered. Only then would the chief flame of that heart would have even more understanding towards artifact and magic weapon refinement." This heavenly talent and earthly treasure reflections recorded many of the materials for refined ores and precious stones. Tool refinement masters must memorize these. The tool refinement style school of thought records a few great abstinences and trains of thought. This tool refinement magic circle is specially used to explain the structure of magic circles that are necessary for tool refinement, and the five elements theory speaks of the engendering and restraining of each of the five elements. Tang Lianxin carefully said word by word. Su Xing listened with hype, more or less remembering these things. It would appear the complex things are a few of the most basic learnings. After a month, I will come test you. Tang Lianxin said. Some of these I am already capable of. Su Xing said. If you feel you currently are capable, then I can test you right now. Go notify the master again. Tang Lianxin was very stiff, his head also not turning as he walked to the side, seemingly not wanting to interact with Su Xing any further. Su Xing put away these books. Can I go learn at other places? As you please. Tang Lianxin said indifferently. Su Xing wiped his sweat, feeling just like he had returned to that generation where teachings were force-fed, a kind of indescribably familiarity with somewhat of a hint of masochism. Su Xing first walked about the mirror's flower stream, roughly understanding the topography of the environment here. He felt this place was considerably good. The rear mountain also had a hot spring, and compared to flaming eastern islands' torrid heat, the mirror's flower stream could be considered a scenic vacation spot. What made Su Xing even more surprised was that the mirror's flower stream's spiritual influence were abundant. He was currently above a spirit vessel, and this was an exceptionally good first choice for an immortal's abode. Choosing a safe location that no one would probably pay attention to, Su Xing let the beautiful girls appear. I really couldn't take it anymore. Finally, I can come out. Several silhouettes flashed, and 5-star maidens emerged from the star nest in succession. As if she had been suffocating for a very long time, Wu Xinjie breathed great mouthfuls of refreshing air. Yuan, help me keep watch over the surroundings for anyone who comes, Su Xing said. Sure, Yuan cutely hummed in agreement, and the thief star then escaped into the wind. Big brother, will you establish an immortal's abode here? And Suan discovered this environment was not bad. The spiritual vessels were top-notch, but it was just too far. Suspended on its lonesome over the sea, returning afterwards was just inconvenient. This is the advantage of the Purple Star Grade token. You can arbitrarily create 3 Void Immortals abodes. Wu Xinjie chuckled. A crafty rabbit has more than 3 burrows. These days, Su Xing already understood from this Purple Star Lianxin Outlaw Jade pendant the above-mentioned more or less confidently. He was very much of the mind to construct an Immortal's abode. First of all, he controlled a magic circle. Placing the Purple Star Outlaw Rit, Lining Mei and Yan Yizhen each stood guard on his sides. Wu Xinjie placed the Heaven's Qi Great Array in order to avoid causing alarm. Su Xing struck several complex seals. They saw the jade pendant suddenly rotate at lightning speed, slowly conforming to the magic circle. It was a kind of sight the naked eye could see, a silky and seemingly woven spiritual influence then was sucked into the jade pendant. Purple light increased sharply. Su Xing raised his essence blood, then began to move his divine intent within his ocean of consciousness to build the structure of the Immortal's abode, from the lounge, the storeroom, the martial arts room, the training room, the weapon refinement room to the garden. Everything was as it should be. Under Su Xing's divine intent, a mountain design on the jade pendant then showed a vivid and lifelike Immortal's abode depiction. The girls waited nearby, staring, unable to take their eyes away. The Lianxin Outlaw Jade pendant actually just created a Void Immortal's abode. It was just that for the Purple Star rank created a Void Immortal's abode, it required maximum spiritual influence to sustain. Unlike the Earthly Fiend and Heavenly Spirit grades, which could do with just abundant spiritual influences, the Purple Star Grade Immortal's abode could only be constructed upon a spiritual vessel. Only with this could he maintain the Immortal's abode, and the constructed Immortal's abode naturally was top quality. Whatever happy paradise Lianxin continent had would not be a match. This absorption of spiritual influences fully used 20 hours. During that time, Su Xing continuously imbued it with star energy. Creating the Immortal's abode exhausted several revolutions, and he nearly was unable to support himself. And Suan unceasingly gave Su Xing replenishment for his vital energy and star energy. They prepared more than a dozen bottles of return spirit liquid, supplement chi spirit pills, and other pills were used right now. Finally, he even utilized 2 Black Turtle Heavenly Spirit pills, 11 that were received from opening Earthly Fiend grade treasure chests. He consumed medicines worth a value of at least 100 million liang of gold to finally, successfully open the abode. Su Xing in the end fell paralyzed into Suan's bosom, at last understanding from experience the feeling that was called death from excessive ejaculation. 12. Wu Xinjie was also endlessly speechless. The legendary Purple Star Grade Immortal's abode, indeed, was too frightening. However, this sort of exhaustion turned into something completely worth it after the 6 entered the Immortal's abode. Su Xing held the jade pendant upon his hand, and with a flash, he entered into the Void Immortal's abode. The interior of the Void Immortal's abode itself was empty space, an area of approximately several 100,000 mu, 13 with green hills surrounding green waters and a dazzling, bejeweled pavilion in the air. A rainbow bridge linked into the clouds and mist, as if chasing it. It was just by staying inside the Immortal's abode that Su Xing could then feel his physical strength rapidly recovering. What made Su Xing even more pleasantly surprised was that there was an orchard beside the incredible building. Upon it was a firmament blue tree, 14, and on the tree was hung the pervasive fragrance of flat peaches. Ah! Life-extending peaches of immortality. And Suan saw those peaches and cried out involuntarily. What? Life-extending peaches? Lin Yingmei also felt shocked. You haven't seen Ruan, little sister Suan? Wu Xinjie was shaken. Life-extending peaches. In olden times, they were a spirit fruit that made Lianxin continent mad. Eating one could extend life by 50 years, and although Lianxin continent star cultivators cultivated star energy that could also extend their lives, a realm could add just 20 years more of longevity. If they encountered some accident like a wug's poison, a curse, or so on, then it would be even less. Even if they cultivated to the highest supreme grade supervoid stage, the most they could have would be 180 years of long life vigor. It could be imagined the sort of idea that a life extending 50 years was. It positively is. And Suan was very certain. Can this flat peach be picked right now? Lianxin asked. And Suan carefully examined them, then nodded. Su Xing, eat it right now. Sure, Yuan excitedly said. Su Xing smiled. That's foolish. What use is there in me eating it?
Ah?
Can't it increase longevity? Sure, Yuan blinked her eyes, immediately realizing this is to give those old cultivators to eat. The headmaster of this place is in his declining years. The life-extending peach actually can be used to exchange for many precious and unique materials. Wu Xinjie's eyes released light, as if she had seen a beautiful future. Su Xing took this flat peach into his sack, and just as he stored it, in an instant, that peach tree rapidly wilted. The group stared blankly. Wu Xinjie had originally thought they had picked up a treasure, and she had hoped this peach tree would produce several life-extending peaches. What was this? Picking just one fruit, and the entire tree completely withered. They really did not have even a smidgen of luck. Su Xing said, "What a pity." However, this purple star-grade paradise really was not bad. Just the misty spiritual influence of this immortal's abode notwithstanding, the environment these green mountains and lakes would make people divide their pleasures, especially with a life-extending flat peach that was counted as an item of value. A heavenly star once every year still has 4 months, and then would begin. At that time, it can be taken for an exchange. Wu Xinjie muttered. Su Xing nodded his head. This kind of thing was good even if he did not have any use for it. If he used it on a fair exchange, there definitely would be a frenzied squabble for it. Su Xing suddenly came up with an idea. Seeing that the Taoist master Xuantian's lifespan was at its sunset, he wondered whether or not this life-extending flat peach could be exchanged for that Taoist master Xuantian's 4 styles school sect protecting treasure, the 4 styles heaven and earth sword. Subsequently, Su Xing again patrolled through his immortal's abode, increasingly satisfied with the purple star-grade immortal's abode the more he looked. This immortal's abode indeed was too defiant of the natural order. It simply was just like a small void Lianxin, with mountains on one side and water on the other, an environment of serene orchards. Other than the reason why the outlaw Lianxin pendant was a requirement for Star Master's immortal abode's tokens, besides abundant spiritual influence and cultivating in the immortal's abode, there was still another big characteristic that was instant paradise. As long as you held the jade pendant in hand, regardless of location, even if he was a world apart from the abode, he could return to it in a flash. This was equivalent to a life-saving talisman. Imagine that, within a life and death battle, just when an impending crisis loomed, suddenly using the jade pendant to escape back into the abode was superior to an escape technique by an unknown number of ranks. With this jade pendant, as long as he did not encounter the abnormality of a swift defeat, Su Xing could come and go to anywhere in Lianxin with ease. Of course, this kind of jade pendant could not possibly be used often. With every usage of instant paradise, the jade pendant would split open a crack, and with 4 cracks, the jade pendant would be damaged, the immortal's abode also disappearing. However, 3 chances inside the star duels meant he had obtained an unexpected advantage. The spiritual influences of the paradise were abundant, and there was also a bamboo forest. And Suan released the essence-swallowing dragons to cultivate, and there currently were 60 essence-swallowing dragons. As long as they exceeded 100, at that time, they could be of help. Master, we had still better immediately mix your cultivation. See if you can or cannot enter Galaxy Stage. Lianxin reminded him at this time. Su Xing was also in agreement. Restraining his excitement, he entered impeccable moral integrity. The girls were left outside the exquisitely made pavilion in the air. Only Wu Xinjie followed to enact a protective magic for Su Xing. Sitting down cross-legged, Su Xing entered a meditative state. A star cultivator's cultivation advancement was one quantitative change, turning into another quantitative change. Every change to a promotion was a difficult threshold, and besides requiring star energy to meet some extent, mental state was also a factor. In the slowness, Su Xing then felt his mind outside his body, and his organs, tissues, and nerves were seemingly transparent. His star energy condensed clouds that were thickly crammed into his body, an abundance that was hard to imagine. If it was anyone else, they certainly would be in for a surprise. An unprecedented, dense magic energy like Su Xing's at the peak of Nebula late stage greatly disrespected galaxy cultivators. This was no wonder, for Su Xing had signed 5 star generals, and among them, 2 were top-notch heavenly stars above the rank of 10. Their star energies were matchlessly robust. Changing it into his body naturally was something ordinary people could not compare to. Thus, accumulating over time like this, his star energy would but frighten people to death. However, this way also had shortcoming. Because he had star energy for 5 people, this signified the star energy Su Xing distributed to the star generals would be increasingly dispersed. Outside of resonance, what they received even was not enough for one person. This was an inevitable outcome of contracting multiple star generals, and another important weakness, then, was that it was heavily difficult for Su Xing to advance to the next realm. Nebula stage advancement to galaxy stage required that the cultivator transfer the magic energy in their body, and circulating the nebula magic energy over his whole body for several thousand days, until the clouds and mist turned to threads, the threads into fine rain, and the fine rain mass into a river. 3. At that time, his star energy would become like blood, circulating throughout the cultivator's entire body until it genuinely reached the mixture realm. Clouds and mist turned to threads, the threads into fine rain, and the fine rain mass into a river. Each of these 3 steps could not afford a mistake. Su Xing first of all used the absolute sincerity soul technique to have himself recover to his most profound and calm state of mind, and then he used the secret technique of the purple star transforming qi to harmonize the star energy in his body. This made the cloud-shaped magic energy begin to circulate across his whole body. It was excessively tremendous, to the extent that its circulation speed was exceptionally slow, seemingly blocked up by something insufferably difficult to bear. His forehead overflowed with fine beads of sweat. Wu Xinjie took out a handkerchief to lightly wipe them away, her heart secretly praying. How could she ever know the challenge Su Xing currently faced? From the outside, his internals always needed maximum investment, just the so-called 1 minute of applause on the stage, and 10 years of endurance off the stage. Su Xing's lips slightly spread, and Wu Xinjie tacitly understood she was to administer to Su Xing the pills that were prepared beforehand to act as supplements. His suffering expression somewhat improved. Wu Xinjie frowned, gazing at Su Xing just like this, not daring to take her gaze away for the slightest bit. This gaze remained for an entire 20 hours. Su Xing collapsed. He opened his eyes, his whole body already soaked in cold sweat. "Did you fail?"
Wu Xinjie said.
And Su Xing was depressed. The 20 hours of tremendous nebula star energy in his body was actually too deeply entrenched, as if a boulder was blocking it up. Su Xing already used his greatest strength to go move it, but it still was slow as before. In accordance with this speed, he would need at the minimum several months without stopping for sleep or rest in order to only perhaps see and reach his nebula turn into threads, which truly depressed Su Xing to death. "This is the price." Wu Xinjie stuck out her cute tongue. "We had better think of some other methods," Su Xing said. "Go ask little sister Suan. She is the divine physician, so she should have some methods that can create a few pills to get through the bottleneck,"
Wu Xinjie said.
For cultivations above nebula stage, star cultivators have then entered a different realm. The value of this cultivation bottleneck breakthrough pill was extremely expensive. When Su Xing cultivated just now, he had ingested 10 scattered river pills, and each was a good medicine for the bottleneck of promoting nebula to galaxy. The value of one was above 5 million liang of gold. Certainly, even if this type of pill did not have any results, they could only inquire the efficacious star to again make a plan. And Suan at this time was sitting on a stone platform in the bamboo grove inside the Immortal's abode. Close to more than 60 essence-swallowing dragons currently moved about cheerfully and lightheartedly, a great number of green lights, just like sprites as they decorated the surroundings. The girl rested her chin on both hands, lost in thought. "Little sister Suan, what sort of heat are you in?" A charming phrase broke Suan's blank stare. "Sister Xinjia," and Suan's face carried a slight smile. "Suan is worried brother perhaps has great difficulty rushing into Galaxy. Right, that attack has failed." Wu Xinjia helplessly said, "We just happen to want to ask little sister Suan for your ideas, see if there is some solution." She summarized the situation. When she mentioned whether or not Suan could manufacture for Su Xing a custom-made breakthrough pill, and Suan's face suddenly flushed slightly red, and put forward that she needed to administer it to Su Xing alone to see. On this point, Wu Xinjia did not have any opinions. Immortal's abode pavilion. The bedroom. Su Xing currently shut his eyes in contemplation, and Suan carefully and solemnly stepped forward, afraid of disturbing him. As early as when Suan stepped into the pavilion, Su Xing had already known. He opened his eyes, somewhat embarrassed as he said, "Little sis Suan, I fear I must trouble you. This is something little sister should do." And Suan's eyes were watery, blinking. "Little sister only needs to trouble big brother for a bit."
"Sure."
"What do I need to do?" Su Xing asked. And Suan lightly bit her teeth, and little sister must ask for big brother to take off all his clothes. Su Xing's mouth hung open. "Strip off all my clothes?" If he was not confident that Suan was pure and honest, a steady girl, he definitely would have wanted to indulge in fantasy. And Suan explained, because Suan wants to know the amount of presence Big Brother's star energy has in the whole body when exerted, as well as a few characteristics, in order to prescribe the right medicine for the right illness. 5. Su Xing nodded. Without any hesitation, he stripped naked. He had thick skin, and he had experience being stark naked in front of nurses when he previously had physical examinations anyways. Although physicians had virtue, this was the first time Suan had seen a man's naked body, and her face was immediately red up to the ears. "Big brother, please lay face up on the bed,"
she softly said.
Su Xing lay down according to her instructions. And Suan then had Su Xing begin harmonizing the star energy in his body. Seeing Su Xing already busy, and Suan lightly exhaled. Her white fingers wiped past her eyes, and she saw clearly. And Suan walked over, her two hands pressing against both ends of Su Xing's neck. When her palms stuck on, the warmth from the girl's hands made Su Xing feel somewhat different. And Suan's palms stuck to Su Xing's skin, both left and right hands gently and slowly stroking. Through the fiery temperature of his skin, the girl sensed the agitation of the star energy within. "Big brother, no random thoughts." And Suan softly said. "An." Su Xing raised the absolute sincerity soul technique, making his star energy wander throughout his whole body. It was just that this method of Suan's to check star energy actually was too unnerving. The girl's slender hands were like a caress, and her arms, too. Certainly, when they caressed his stomach, that penetrating affection's continuous stroking forced all of Su Xing's blood seemingly drop a bit. And Suan's charming face was embellished with red clouds. She was also afraid of harming Big Brother, her movements graceful and tender, the temperature as their skin mutually rubbed growing warmer and warmer. This was the first time Suan had comforted a man's entire body, and the target, as it happened, was the man she liked. And Suan did her best to bear her restless heartbeat. And after her hands stroked past his waist, that sky-supporting pillar of Su Xing's was revealed in Suan's eyes. 6. Big brother, the girl tenderly cried out, somewhat rebuking him, hurriedly turning her gaze back. "Could your hands be a bit firmer?" Su Xing was helpless. And Suan's hands actually were too tender, making his lower half nearly explode. Even if he suppressed it with the absolute sincerity soul technique, its head would rise within Suan's slightest movement. The divine physician was the divine physician. Every soft movement, as it turned out, induced Su Xing's hormones. How can this be firm? And Suan's hands lightly slid past the inside of Su Xing's thighs, the flowing black hair. She strived her hardest to not look out of the corner of her eye at that fearful and imposing spear. Big brother, your yang qi is too vigorous. This will affect the circulation of magic energy. 7. And Suan bit her lip, softly speaking. How about you let me first settle this alone for a bit? 6. And Suan's face flushed red like a completely ripe tomato at Su Xing's frank words. No need. This kind of interruption would affect you even more. And Suan inwardly breathed deeply. The efficacious star said to herself, a physician is like a parent. Clenching her teeth and steeling herself, both hands grabbed that sky-raising pillar that made her feel ashamed. 6. Ah. A boiling heat made Suan's body nearly go limp. Su Xing moaned. Suan. Big brother, don't move. And Suan's gaze looked at Su Xing, an expression both frowning and in enjoyment. Her slender white fingers then began to move, and the girl's breathing muffled. Her body was also boiling, both legs restlessly twisting. Oh, Su Xing only felt his entire body explode, a kind of indescribable ecstasy cramming the cells of his entire body. Fortunately, his willpower was sufficiently firm, and he knew what the present situation was. Big brother, use your forces. And Suan clamped her legs, promptly crying out. Su Xing raised his star energy, entering a blissful seventh heaven of a place.
Oh dear.
Not wearing one thread, Suan gently took hold of the shao. 10. Two passions mutually fulfilled. The splash was like the blooming of flowers. And, by the way, since so many people are wondering, no, and Suan did not have intercourse with Su Xing. She only gave him a hand, so to speak, and that was enough to pleasure her. A copper man puppet half knelt where it was, its entire body left with countless battle dents. The thief star Yuan was just like an engineering designer, on hand holding the MO attack mechanism records while looking over everywhere on this puppet. Yuaner, has the copper man puppet been prepared to advance ranks? Wu Xinjie walked over. The knowledge star found that she really was miserable enough. And Suan could help Su Xing refine pills. Lining Mei and Yan Yizhen currently practice spear techniques and boxing to exercise to the next realm, and even Yuan found work promoting the puppet. In the end, the ranked third knowledge star was the one most idle with her time. Although she had plans, it was just that they were currently useless. Sister Xinjie, how is young Master Su Xing? Yuan turned her head and asked. Promotion is somewhat difficult, but Suan should have a solution. Wu Xinjie said. Yuan nodded her head, still very much confident in Su Xing. When he comes out, this young lady will give him a nice surprise. You all can help young lord resolve his difficulties and leave his worries behind. Pretty good, indeed. Wu Xinjie smiled. Yuan heard the knowledge star's tone was slightly dejected. Having learned from Su Xing, she patted Wu Xinjie's shoulder. Sister Xinjie, you are actually the one that can most help young lord resolve his difficulties. What the thief star said was not mere consolation. That time with the supercluster cultivator on Grindstone Mountain, and that time with the crying infant in the void Lianxin, both were incidents where Wu Xinjie made her name. Otherwise, whether or not they could have passed through smoothly was an unknown. Even Sister Ingmei admires you very much. Wu Xinjie smiled, but you all have something to do. Me wasting time like this is not a solution. The danger of the future purple star grade birth outline is an unknown, and we need to bind around with silk before it rains. The knowledge star muttered, pensive. This kind of troublesome thing will be turned over to Sister Xinjie anyways. Yuan laughed. Wu Xinjie rolled her eyes. I'm preparing to refine this copper man puppet to galaxy stage. Sister Xinjie, do you see any more gaps? Yuan outlined her procedure to refine the puppet. This copper man puppet itself was equivalent to nebula stage, but going through this many battles, it was on the verge of collapse. The soul driving the copper man puppet also had reached ruination phase. In the days after, it would not have much use in Su Xing's battles, and Yuan already had a 5th-rank soul and 2 6th-rank souls with her that completely could be exchanged for one. The magic circle here can be changed. Some relic blade sand can be poured in if it's over here. Wuxinjie pointed out a few places that could be improved. Sure, Yuan benefited from the advice, and then she began to apply the operation. Seeing Sure Yuan was going to refine the 5th-rank puppet soul, Lianxin and Yan Yizhen stopped their drills and gathered to the side. They saw Sure Yuan first open a large array. "Sisters, I'll need to trouble you." Sure Yuan giggled. They nodded, each taking one of the 4 directions. Subsequently, 4-star weapon refinement grade arrays appeared, and the Copper Man puppet's position overlapped with the 4 arrays. Sure Yuan then mobilized Starfire to burn. The Copper Man puppet very quickly became a lump of thick, molten copper under the Starfire. Sure Yuan at this time followed the MO attack mechanism record's so-called figure exchange 2 procedure and condensed the molten copper into an enormous copper ball. Under Sure Yuan's control, every kind of material then flew into the copper ball and was enveloped. With her divine intent, the copper ball began to expand and lengthen, little by little. "Go!" Sure Yuan read, grabbing a puppet banner. The 5th-rank ancient demon beast Cyclops Jin's enormous soul then scuttled in from the banner. Once the soul entered, the floating molten copper immediately released a splitting noise, and then a manufactured mechanical beast's body slowly took shape. Around 2 hours later, a 3-zhang tall, entirely clad in black armor Cyclops Jin mechanical beast that was like a small mountain appeared before the girls. The process to manufacture a puppet beast was far from over. Afterwards, Sure Yuan then finished little by little the final touches of work. Wuxinjie and the other 2 fell back to the side. How has young master still not have emerged? Lianxin glanced at the building in the clouds, suspiciously asking Wuxinjie. Wuxinjie shook her head, for she also was unclear. Just as they thought about this, the door opened. Su Xing and Suan then walked out one after the other. Su Xing seemed to be glowing, his vigor shaking. "Sure Yuan, have you finished making it?" Seeing that huge mechanical beast the moment he walked out, Su Xing was surprised. Until before the purple star birth outline begins, this young lady will also control the 2 other souls. Sure Yuan controlled her divine intent while speaking, pleased with herself. Su Xing encouraged Suan, and then they walked down the rainbow bridge together. Facing the deeply concerned expressions of 3 sisters, and Suan's cheeks were red as she replied, "Suan already knows about the bottleneck of Big Brother's star energy. Within a month, Suan can create something. That is for the best." Wuxinjie sighed in relief. How sharp was she? Being able to see Su Xing's and Suan's eyes had a trace of guilt as she made fun of them. "Young lord, you and little sister Suan were in the bedroom for this long." Ingmei was even worried that young lord ate little sister Suan. "Suan is my little sister. How could I eat her?" 3 Su Xing said in deadly earnest. And Suan bashfully blushed in shame, burying her head, continuously nodding in agreement with Su Xing's words. Wuxinjie had wanted to continue poking fun, when suddenly, at this time, Su Xing's brows twisted. They saw the jade pendant trembled, and a figure appeared in the ocean of consciousness that approached the area. The Void Immortal's abode could stand guard of the surrounding 10 li. In the case someone approached, it would immediately give Su Xing a warning. Su Xing and the rest then left the Immortal's abode, finding the outside was already very late at night. Turning his head around to look at the position of the Void Immortal's abode, the atmosphere had a faint ripple diffusing, visible to the naked eye. However, the Void Immortal's abode had a powerful forbiddance protecting it. If it was not a strong ability user or a specially practiced cultivation method, they still would not be able to perceive that this Immortal's abode was present. Su Xing held the jade pendant, carving the divine intents of Lianxin, Wuxinjie, and Suan, Sure Yuan, and Yan Yizhen onto the jade pendant. With this, the 5 beautiful maidens could enter and exit the Void Immortal's abode any time they wished. "It seems that Tang Lianxin is coming here." Su Xing's divine intent sensed the approaching person. He turned his head to the beautiful girls. "You all can cultivate inside the Immortal's abode, then. That perverted martial Aunt Yueke insists on making me return every night to sleep." "Master, Do you not need slave servant to protect you? Yan Yizhen said. No need. This is the center of the four-style school. I won't encounter any dangers here. You all should have your own things to do. Su Xing shook his head. His body technique shifted, and he fled into the dark night. The beautiful girls' ineffectual faces looked at each other. Big Brother's words are not wrong. In any case, Big Brother is learning tool refinement, so there is nothing we can help with. And Suan said, This place is the sex center, so we probably will not run into anything dangerous. Wu Xinjie nodded. The group turned and entered the ripple. Before Lianxin Mei entered, she turned her head to stare into the deep and dark night. Only then did she enter into the immortal's abode. Su Xing very quickly bumped into Tang Lianxin. The Four Styles sect has established rules. From now on, do not be too late. Tang Lianxin icily said. Turning around, he then left, actually very blunt. Returning to the bamboo house, he saw Tang Lianxin already on the bed, wrapped in the blanket, sealing himself in very tightly. Su Xing yawned, for he actually was very tired. After undoing his clothes, he got on the bed, which made Tang Lianxin tighten the blankets even more. This made Su Xing feel speechless, feeling as though he had infringed upon Lianxin. 5. Very early the second day. Su Xing rose, then thumbed through that thick tool refinement outline, engrossed as he read. Because he was waiting for Yueke to return, Su Xing did not directly return to the Void Immortal's abode. Tang Lianxin was in the courtyard, still practicing his one blue and one red fantastic flames. I heard masters say it has only been 2 years since you came here? Su Xing could not resist asking. Why would you want to come to the Four Styles sect? According to what he knew, because of the Four Styles school's environment and blockade, it did not receive favor. It was very rare for people to take the initiative to enter the Four Styles school. Tang Lianxin was briefly silent. Slowly, he said, I was previously at a small tool refinement gang. It was eventually wiped out, so that is why I am here. It sounded as if a period of sadness had passed, however, seeing that his expression was very hard. It did not have any amount of sorrow upon it. I heard you are an apprentice received by an elder heaven-clinging divine fire of the Four Styles school. Tang Lianxin stopped practicing. But he has met with a mishap. And has he taught you anything? Besides simple school entrance soul techniques, there is nothing else. Tang Lianxin kept silent. Su Xing very quickly finished reading several tool refinement books, and not long after, Yueke also arrived at Mirror's flower stream upon a riding sword. She did not teach any soul techniques, but said Su Xing's sect robes were complete and made Tang Lianxin accompany him to retrieve them. She also intentionally told Tang Lianxin to take Su Xing around to acquaint himself with the entire flaming Eastern Island, to understand the sect he was part of. However, no matter how Su Xing looked at it, Yueke was thinking of making Tang Lianxin drop that bad antisocial temper. Tang Lianxin nodded, releasing a war chariot. The chariot was on wind wheels, 6 spinning up clouds of dust. The front of the chariot was engraved with the 2 words, Fire Beacon, making Su Xing startled. This unexpectedly was an astral tool, and it was a rarely seen flight astral tool. Where did this come from? Su Xing said. Tang Lianxin turned his head away, intent on not replying. Su Xing shrugged his shoulders, stepping onto this war chariot, embarrassed. The fire beacon chariot's wind wheels turned, then departed Mirror's flower stream in a flash. It was unknown how much faster this speed was compared to the wind-swayed rafts. The fire beacon chariot very quickly arrived at the beautiful pavilion, and inside, after he finished fitting his robes, they then went to the sword storage pavilion to obtain a sect flying sword. Although they already were a declining large sect, that complex procedure was still maintained. At the sword storage pavilion, they just happened to encounter a group of cultivators that wanted to exchange flying swords. Seeing Su Xing, the newly arrived Nebula late stage, they knew he was Martial Aunt Yueke's apprentice. That group of cultivators contained an inevitable sense of jealousy. In the Four Styles school, to be able to study under Yueke was the greatest honor. Little sister Lianxin, long time no see. Have you finally agreed to come out from Mirror's flower stream? A burst of ridiculing laughter. The one who spoke was a very dark-skinned and tall man. He once was selected by Yueke to be a disciple, but he did not stay for even 2 months before he was expelled. Clamoring with ridicule, at that time, the one who expelled him was none other than Tang Lianxin. Little sister Lianxin? Su Xing frowned and turned his head, looking at Tang Lianxin's indifference. Little sister Lianxin is still so cold. You even forced Martial Aunt Yueke to find a partner for you. The man roared with laughter, as did the other cultivators. Tang Lianxin had come to the sect for only 2 years, and because of his outstanding talent and esteem, it was just like he had been looked upon as the core of the Four Styles School's future. Regarding these disciples that had stayed at the sect for more than 10 years, naturally they were brimming with indignation and jealousy. However, they were still of the same school, so they only dared to talk. To commit an offense against Master Aunt Yueke, there was no recovering from that. To see with their own eyes people escape from this predicament, how could they not seize the chance to knowingly smile? A coward, as expected. How embarrassing. Seeing Tang Lianxin's face was expressionless, the man disdainfully curled his lips. Inviting a snub, in an instant, cold wind poured into his ear. The man had not yet come back to his senses when a flying sword immediately shot to and touched his forehead. His legs immediately went limp. Yeah, right. As expected, only sissies would rely on insulting others to promote their own superiority. Su Xing's flying sword really was too quick. Everyone did not return to their senses. They only saw the dark-faced man scream. Su Xing simply did not have the intent to kill him. The dark-faced man was white from looking at the flying sword next to his brow, but he was also Nebula late stage. Naturally, he certainly would not fear Su Xing, and he defiantly smiled. What is that, a man named Lianxin? If this is not girly, then what is it? Your brain is not broken, is it? What are you called? Su Xing coldly asked. This one beneath you is Zhou Bao. The man said proudly. Oh, could it because you are called Zhou Bao? Are you a beast, then? Too, Su Xing sneered.
Oft.
The stiff-faced, to the extreme Tang Lianxin heard Su Xing's words and could not help smile. That smile truly had the same motions as a beautiful woman's, and Su Xing's heart said this was abnormal. 3. This Tang Lianxin smile truly was somewhat flirtatious, so it was no wonder that this bunch of men were jealous. Honestly speaking, at this moment, even Su Xing felt that he was a woman. Su Xing was frightened by his own heart's thinking, so he hastily calmed his mind. Zhou Bao was rendered speechless by Su Xing's words, unsightly as he held back. At this time, a fire cloud peak disciple that was with him was resentful. You quickly lower your sword. Do not think you can do as you please just because you are under Yueke's school. Any way you put it, we are your senior brothers. Quickly lower your flying sword and apologize. All the disciples were Nebula stage, and they relied on their own numbers being greater, also hooting insults at Su Xing as a newcomer. I will never apologize. Su Xing spat. Zhou Bao seized the chance to curse. Brothers, this guy does not pay respects to his elder brothers. Scared stiff by he alone, how could Fire Cloud Peak ever face anyone after this? Fire Cloud Peak's disciples were angry, immediately striking seals. Su Xing snorted. Seeing that several dozen glittering flying swords on the sword storage pavilion, he made a hook with his finger, and the flying swords hung upon the wall lazily shot out, as if there was some spiritual influence. The dozen immediately flew towards those disciples. These Fire Cloud Peaks nearly fainted from fright when they saw this. One person controlled several tens of flying swords, yet it was not a powerful sword art. This divine intent was extraordinary. Su Xing's right hand turned, and the backs of the dozen flying swords snapped like a whip at them. The Fire Cloud Peak disciples ran away in a flurry, continuously making pitiful noises. A few disciples wanted to use flying swords, but their divine intents simply were too late as they had been whipped silly. Consequently, an odd play was exhibited outside the sword storage pavilion. Su Xing controlled swords with both hands, the several dozen flying swords dancing wildly without stopping, making these disciples cut sorry figures as they endlessly fled like rats. At this time, the disciples of the other peaks heard the commotion at the sword storage pavilion and crowded around. Seeing Su Xing alone teaching a lesson to 7, 8 cultivators about the same cultivation as him, they were nearly astonished to death. When did the 4 styles sect some out with such an immensely powerful nebula cultivator? Daring to humiliate my Fire Cloud Peak disciples, you are courting death. From the side came quite a delicate cold shout. A burning hot fire broke the air. Su Xing waved his hand, and the dozen flying swords immediately uniformly formed a sword shield that blocked in front of him. Since it was not a sword art, this seemingly gorgeous sword shield was easily broken. The dozen flying swords were jolted all over the place. Using his current divine intent to form this type of sword array was too difficult. The sword shield broke, turning into a pile of scrap iron that completely lacked spiritual powers. However, it also helped Su Xing successfully arrive under the sneak attack. Then, a second whip practically did not stop as it whizzed through the air, the burning noise ear-piercing like a dragon's cry. This whip entirely swept away the leftover flying swords, imposing and overwhelmingly fierce. The one who appeared was a young girl with her black hair in a cloud bun, wearing red soft armor and a red hat. Her figure was slim, exceedingly beautiful. She actually was a beauty, but the angry glare of that pair of eyes more or less destroyed her beauty. You outrageously mad apprentice. Unexpectedly humiliating the Fire Cloud Peak's disciples, die. The young girl was an irascible master. Her hand held a crimson long whip, and the whip's whistle broke the air as it swung towards Su Xing. Su Xing tilted his head, evading the strike, and then he leaned forward and rushed. The young girl's phoenix shoes retreated, the long whip continuously cracking. Recalling it back, the whip immediately formed a defensive appearance, the whip making a whooshing sound. Raging flames burned, appearing like a dragon swimming around the girl's entire body. She wanted to keep Su Xing outside of 3 chi of herself, meaning her martial arts actually were pretty good. Su Xing availed himself to take a step backwards. The girl sneered, her pupils flashing a cold light. Her wrist flipped, and the whip that was making a defensive position ducked to the side, suddenly exerting power as it bit straight at him. The speed was quick, passing in a flash. Crack! A crisp sound in the air. The whip flogged onto Su Xing. The young woman grinned, but she discovered afterward that was nothing more than a false image. Not good. The young woman suddenly felt a cold wind pour into her ear. She stepped backwards continuously, wanting to retrieve the whip, but Su Xing was even faster by a step. One hand grabbed the girl's slender hands, and crossing them, he pinned both of the girl's hands behind her back. Su Xing did not feel gentle towards her, his strength actually very heavy. The young lady was in unbearable pain, the whip falling from her hands. With this, Su Xing had completed locking the girl's arms behind her. The young woman had been fixed into a position that stuck out her alluring chest. Her chest is actually rather impressive. Su Xing was behind her, and looking down from above, he thought this. He did not show mercy when he used the hand capture method he learned from the army. Your toying around is paining this young lady, scoundrel. The young girl's tears were about to fall. Quickly release milady. Damn you. Quickly release her, new guy. Otherwise, we will never be finished with you. The Fire Cloud Peak disciples originally had looked forward to the girl helping them spew their foul air. How could they have guessed that in the blink of an eye, the girl would be contrarily restrained, and her posture made very sensual. The eyes of the disciples watching burned with rage. It hurts, the girl cried. The Fire Cloud Peak disciples promptly halted their attack. Su Xing disdainfully looked at them. His hand moved and picked up that whip. It was made from dragon tendon, its flames clear and crystal, bold and fierce, and very tough. It surprisingly was a nebula magic weapon made from an ancient lost treasure. Su Xing's heart secretly said, "Fuck, this 4 styles school deserves to be called the Ancient 9 Dragons Tool Refinement Great School." Whichever of the two he looked at, the fire beacon chariot and this fire whip were both at the peak. More disciples gathered around, and they were dumbstruck looking at this scene. The girl increasingly had the mind to slice and dice the man behind her. She cursed a few times behind her, making Su Xing somewhat increase his strength. The girl knew this would hurt, at once pitifully and endearingly saying, "Quickly release me. Do you know who my father is?" "Your father could be Li Gang 5, and it would not matter to me." Su Xing disapproved. "What bothers me most is those kinds of high and mighty people, like yourself." "Bastard," the girl cursed. "This junior brother. For the time being, let go of Miss Hongxue. 6, then we can speak." A disciple wearing the Water Moon Peak's robe said, "You're a man. How can you treat a woman like this? Is he still a man? If you're a man, then you will release Miss Hongxue." The Fire Cloud Peak disciples immediately agreed upon hearing this, but the disciples of the other peaks actually spoke less. They had an appearance of watching a major drama, especially those male cultivators staring with fixed eyes at the girl's loftily raised breasts. Indeed, they wished Su Xing would not let go. If he could unfasten the buttons before their eyes, that would be even better. What should I care whether or not she is a woman? She isn't my woman anyways. Su Xing sneered. She had tried to kill him, so yielding would be stupid. Humph. So it turns out that Tang Lianxin is your woman.
No wonder you would act out.
Zhou Bao's sarcastic sickness could not help but flare up. Su Xing's wrist moved. The whip whizzed, and a rainbow light broke. Zhou Bao screamed as he covered his face, falling and rolling about where he stood. The male cultivators that were still admiring the girl's chest each drew in a cold breath, trembling in fear. The junior brother before them was very tyrannical. "Apologize, or I will take you back to instruct you on how you should apologize." Su Xing spat. "You hoodlum." The young girl went limp. "Hurry. This young lady Kadaya, it really hurts Wu. Sorry, you bastard." The young girl's eyes were moist. "Say it more clearly," Su Xing said impatiently. "Sorry, you bastard, are you cursing me? Or are you apologizing?" Sorry. The girl sobbed spasmodically. "Bastard. Forget it." Looking at her appearance, Su Xing no longer wanted to make things difficult for her. Afterwards, he raised his chin in indication towards those rebellious Fire Cloud Peak disciples. How could these disciples not understand Su Xing's meaning? To take the miss in their arms, they did not dare approach haphazardly. Moreover, they could not handle the newcomer junior brother before them that was a newborn calf unafraid of a lion, so they could only apologize. "The Fire Cloud Peak today has offended you too. We should not have insulted junior brother Tang Lianxin." The disciples of the other 3 styles peaks wanted to laugh when they saw this. When the tyrannical Fire Cloud Peak of the 4 styles school unexpectedly was this choked with resentment, their hearts said the apprentice that Master Uncle Qingshan received was extraordinary. Tang Lianxin continuously stared at Su Xing, which made Su Xing scared from the bottom of his heart, afraid that Tang Lianxin had homosexual tendencies. Until the Fire Cloud Peak loudly apologized. Only then did Tang Lianxin turn away, not uttering a word. With an expression like a boulder, he took out the fire beacon chariot. "Women should be more gentle," Su Xing whispered in her ear, loosening his hand. Without the slightest hesitation, the girl turned around and kicked. Her beautiful foot was grabbed by Su Xing's hand without the least bit of concern for her. "Hoodlum, let go of this young lady," the young girl shouted, red in the face. Su Xing pushed, and the girl staggered, falling flat on her rear where she was. "Return this young lady's fire dragon whip." 7. The young girl shouted. Su Xing certainly was not stupid enough to give her something to fight him with. "Have that father of yours take it," he said as he boarded the fire beacon chariot, not looking at her at all as he departed. "You're a bastard. This young lady, Ruan Hongxue, 8, must thrice announce today's disgrace," the girl shouted. "If you do not have the strength, then do not talk so big." From the sky came a disdainful reply, and a very red whip fell down. It was precisely that fire dragon whip. Hongxue blankly grabbed it in her hands, and the several dozen spectating disciples of the other three schools immediately spun on their heels, escape lights departing. Wielding a nebula magic weapon and rampaging in the Four Styles school without fear, no one wished to become the target that received Ruan Hongxue's attacks. Mississippi. A fire cloud peak disciple's face was full of resentment. That newcomer is too arrogant. Taking up Master Aunt Yueke's support, unexpectedly, he taunted our fire cloud peak in this way. Miss will definitely make us spew our guts. 9 Zhou Bao covered his thoroughly red face, lamenting. Idiot. Ruan Hongxue raised her cracking whip, swinging it down. The group had been whipped into a panic, scattering and sneaking away like rats. Useless things this many people could not best one. You have made this young lady lose face. Bastard, bastard, bastard. You all should die. While she whipped, the girl's eyes burned with a flame, shining with a face completely reflecting a proud, that man is damnable expression. No man had ever dared to make her lose face within the sect. You bastard. Why did you do it like this? On the fire beacon chariot, Tang Lianxin asked. Other people said you were a sissy, and you are actually slightly effeminate. Su Xing creased his brow. Was the Tang Lianxin in front of him a man or not? Even if he had been scolded by a mad dog, there should have been no need to scold back in turn, but whichever way this man was looked at, he had an appearance of indignation. He was at a loss. Tang Lianxin did not mind these kinds of words, but he looked at Su Xing, puzzled. He repeated his question. There was no need for you to go provoke those annoyances for me. We do not have any sort of friendship. Su Xing slumped. This Tang Lianxin indeed was incredibly antisocial. He slightly understood why Yueke so bitterly wanted to change his temper. Master already said we are brothers that are to share our fortunes and misfortunes. Don't give me that sort of icy manner. In any case, we are comrades in arms. You may feel indifferent, but I feel that this is important. Su Xing patted his shoulder, for this was his customary action to show closeness. Tang Lianxin's expression oddly looked at the hand on his shoulder, but he did not say anything more. Then, Tang Lianxin again brought Su Xing around flaming Eastern Island. Reticence and silence were his personality, and there were many places that even he did not know, so in the end, he still came across Protector Yang Yanyu. Only when this open female cultivator acted as a tour guide were things not awkward. The fire beacon chariot arrived at a cape of flaming Eastern Island. Yang Yanyu said, Ghost Chopping Cape, the Four Styles School's most important place. Ghost Chopping Cape? Su Xing felt this name was very strange. Following Yang Yanyu's explanation pointing at the sea, Su Xing then understood. Beyond Ghost Chopping Cape's 10,000 li of sea area was the Falling Cherry Ghost Kingdom. The Falling Cherry Ghost Kingdom was the kingdom of a demonic cult that produced in abundance a kind of devil mask and body techniques that monstrous cultivators were fond of wearing. Thirsting for a kill, they were known as Ghost Martial Cultivators, and they were loathed by the Azure Dragon Territory's cultivators. Frequently, there would be Ghost Martial Cultivators that sneaked into the Azure Dragon Territory to commit massacres, and usually, when Star Cultivators found out, there often were villages littered with corpses and rivers running with blood. Consequently, Ghost Martial Cultivators were called demons among demons, devils that each and every one of the Azure Dragon Territory's cultivators killed. Thus did the Ghost Chopping Cape receive this name. Again, navigating around the villages of flaming Eastern Island, this place's climate was a considerably torrid heat. The earthly fires were too many and ill-suited for wheat and crops. The foodstuffs inside the villages were mostly supplied by the Four Styles School, and the villagers planted large tracts of scarlet monkey fruit, too, and other such spirit fruits to act as remuneration. Su Xing sighed. After bidding farewell to Yang Yanyu, Su Xing and Tang Lianxin then returned to the sect. Just at this time, several escape lights fell before them. Su Xing looked, and the Tsundere 3 girl he previously chided them to was sure enough not resigned, having called for rescue troops. Master Brother Jiao, he is the one who bullied little sister. Hongxue pointed at Su Xing, her expression itching to destroy him. Su Xing stared, and the girl again very fearfully retreated. This time, Hongxue brought more than 20 Fire Cloud Peak disciples with cultivations that were not low in a show of force. Among them was one whose face was smart and bright, with red lips and white teeth. He was an elegant man of approximately 27 or 28 years that made Su Xing feel concern. His forehead was full, his essence qi deep and resounding, divine intent surging. Although he was only galaxy early stage, it seemed he had practiced secret techniques and such. From Yang Yinyu, Su Xing understood what was up with this Thunder Girl. Hongxue, the daughter of Fire Cloud Peak's first seat, Hongda. 5. Running amok in the Four-Style School with a nebula magic weapon, the Fire Dragon Whip, every disciple did not dare provoke her. So this man should be the Fire Cloud Peak's chief elder disciple, Jiao Shu. 6. Known as one of the Four-Style School's 4 great disciples, his sword arts were very exceptional. You really are spoiled. 7. Su Xing coldly looked at her. Master Brother Jiao, see how very rampant he is. He insulted little sister like this. Hongxue said. Jiao Shu was very mild, his lips forming a hook. In an instant, a powerful divine intent immediately spilled over. He used his divine intent to probe Su Xing, who inwardly sneered. He had practiced the 1,000 Machine Gang's great spread divine art and had 5-star generals at his side. Comparing divine sense, he had not yet felt fear, and he released his divine intent. The 2 formless things were practically visible to the naked eye. In the space between them where no one was at, an impact exploded. A fierce astral wind immediately gusted, scattering in every direction. The atmosphere and air suddenly was violent, and the Fire Cloud Peak disciples on riding swords were endlessly blown over. The Tang Lianxin in the Fire Beacon Chariot was actually nonchalant. This astral tool certainly was not something these divine intents could ravage. Tang Lianxin still was that aloof as he stood to the side, spectating, an appearance that did not want to pay attention. Seeing this situation, everyone was shocked, promptly releasing star energy for protection. Explosions rang out continuously, and layers of strong winds formed a slipstream, suddenly sucking the 2 into the middle. The 2 people's silhouettes were instantly indistinct. High in the air, as if there was no form, the 2 were motionless shadows. Hongxue was shocked to the extreme, not expecting the nebula late-stage bastard before her to surprisingly be able to contend against Master Brother. She knew that Senior Brother Jiao fortunately obtained a kind of divine sense refinement secret art, regarded as higher than the rest of the disciples in the entire Four-Style School. Jiao Shu's expression slightly changed, the robes on his body uplifted. The firelight was fierce, only seeing divine intent become fire and ignition. Su Xing was unconcerned, slowly increasing his own divine intent. His divine sense was like a vast lake shrouded in mist, covering Jiao Shu. The flames immediately died out, and Jiao Shu could only raise an artifact to protect himself, otherwise, he would probably be knocked down by Su Xing's divine intent. He looked at Su Xing with an expression of unabashed shock. The Fire Cloud Peak disciples thought that when they saw their great senior brother suddenly released his artifact that he was about to act. Immediately, every kind of sword and polearm clattered. Carvings and paintings were thrown out, rays of light leaking everywhere, imposing and scathing. Jiao Shu was too late to stop this. 8. Su Xing also did not anticipate these Fire Cloud Peaks to unexpectedly loot a burning house. They belonged to the same school, and acting without the slightest hesitation, his heart was furious. Su Xing wanted to use the Blooming Water Divine Thunder to teach them a lesson. At this time, Tang Lianxin was also finally displeased. He lazily tossed his hand, and a scroll was thrown into the air. That scroll hung in the air. Suddenly, both sides unraveled, then shot out a white mist. This mist wrapped and completely assimilated the artifacts of various ranks that were thrown over into itself. Then, the scroll rolled up and fell into Tang Lianxin's hand. Everyone was dumbstruck. Astral tool. Ah, it's an astral tool. Weapon Removal Scroll. 9. Jiao Shu was shocked. Su Xing was also astonished. His heart said this Tang Lianxin truly was incredible. He seemed antisocial and harmless, so he did not think that he unexpectedly would even have an astral tool. In addition, this astral tool seemed to be very powerful. More than a dozen artifacts were sucked into it nearly without resistance. However amazing it was, Su Xing still was annoyed by these sneak-attacking disciples. This young lady certainly did not sneak attack you. Wan Hongxue's heart was shadowy, promptly putting things to order. Impudent. Jiao Shu heavily yelled at every disciple, reprimanding them. Did you want to slaughter your fellow sect members? Who let you act? But we didn't do it for the young miss. All the disciples were confused. Apologies for just now. Jiao Shu apologetically cupped his fist, his expression actually sincere with no sign of falsity. This child, Hongxue, is too tsundere. Precisely as junior brother Su Xing said to the extreme, she has been spoiled and needs someone to discipline her. When I heard someone could chide her, I actually wanted to make friends with him. I must implore that you do not mind the matter that occurred just now. She definitely needs some proper control. However, her being spoiled is something you indulge her in. Su Xing snorted. Haha, junior brother Su Xing truly has hit the mark with those words. Jiao Shu laughed. Senior brother Jiao, what are you saying? Ruan Hongxue thought she had misheard. How could you become friends with him, Hongxue? From now on, you must not act without regard for the rules. You're acting as you please in the four-style school. That is because you have the headmaster at your back and an astral treasure upon your person that you can run amok here. However, if you exit the four-style school, you will pay the price. Jiao Shu lectured her. Humph. This young lady does not want to go out. Isn't going out death? 10. Ruan Hongxue twitched her mouth. Jiao Shu shook his head. Thing had suddenly become like this, so Su Xing was slightly surprised by the turn of events. Nevertheless, he happily watched this play. A moment afterwards, Jiao Shu said, the matter just now was somewhat in violation of the rules. Is it possible to return the artifacts that were absorbed to the disciples? Tang Lianxin coldly looked at him, throwing the astral tool, Weapon Removal Scroll. The scroll once again opened, and the artifacts flew out. Everyone looked at Tang Lianxin with lingering fears. Even Jiao Shu was slightly afraid. As expected, Master Aunt Yueke is somewhat insightful. Junior brothers Su Xing and Lianxin are both giants among men. The future four-style school will rely on you two junior brothers. Jiao Shu sincerely spoke. Go to hell. The four-style school does not need to rely on this shameless bastard. Wan Hongxue angrily stamped her foot. She raised an escape light, not wanting to stay a moment longer. Before leaving, she glared at Su Xing. Su Xing could tell she probably wanted to eat him alive. He chatted with Jiao Shu for a while, finding that he had grown as a refined and smart person, not at all someone who would aid an evildoer as he had imagined. After returning to the mirror's flower stream, passing through the matter that previously occurred, the relationship between the two had been pulled greatly closer. Just as Su Xing prepared to first go to the Void Immortal's abode, at this time, Tang Lianxin took the initiative to call out to him. Su Xing thought this was strange. That charming youth threw a similar thing to Su Xing. With a look, it was a book titled, For School's Deep Arts. 11. Su Xing did not understand. Tang Lianxin explained, if you want to learn the four-style school's true tool refinement, this will be of aid to you. Su Xing was curious. Flipping through it, inside were a few of Tang Lianxin's notes, and among them were a few shallow four-styles foundations that made Su Xing very surprised. This four-styles foundations portion was something else. It was precisely the four-styles school's four-styles refinement gained through experience. Actually, there was one important reason Wu Xinjie chose the four-style school, was that the four-style school's tool refinement was a characteristic that was absolute in the Azure Dragon territory, even in the Great Liang dynasty. They used the four styles of fire, thunder, water, and wind in their refinement technique. Heavenly fire tempering, thunder roll refinement, warm water moistening, divine wind engraving, 12. Every step contained the power of the four styles of heaven and earth. Using this four styles to refine an artifact far surpassed others by a rank, and it could also make the star generals with their essence, qi, spirit, refinement technique to feel this was an admirable refinement technique. However, this kind of four styles refinement was extremely difficult. First of all, for different kinds of power sees the level of perfection. Moreover, to be able to mutually use them skillfully, to master this four styles needed a very long time. Even if it was the tool refinement scholar Yueke Qiankun or Yueke, both had grasped two styles. The former was heavenly fire tempering and thunder roll refinement, while Yueke was warm water moistening and divine wind engraving. Originally, Su Xing hoped that being able to grasp one refinement style was pretty good. Looking over this for school's deep arts, Su Xing could not help but pleased beyond his expectations. Amazing, amazing. To be able to figure out this method is truly outstanding. Su Xing sat on the Rainbow Bridge in the Immortal's abode, flipping through that for school's deep arts, continuously exclaiming in admiration. Young lord, what is outstanding? Warm and soft jade arms embraced his neck from behind. Wu Xinjie blew air very gently beside his ear. Look. Su Xing gave the book to her. Actually, written inside was not any incomparable art or top-notch soul technique. It only had a few experiences and suppositions pertaining to the four styles of refinement. As everyone knew, the four styles schools, heavenly fire tempering, thunder roll refinement, warm water moistening, divine wind engraving did not have a match under heaven. However, an overall survey of a millennia did not have any tool refinement masters that could reach this realm. Even the founding master that opened the school did not achieve it. The reason was very simple, and that was because of the four styles' mutual restraint. If he followed the refinement of the four styles, then he would necessarily grasp this four styles. However, the obvious fact that fire and water mutually restrained each other since time immemorial was known by everyone. To let a tool refinement master simultaneously use fire tempering refinement and the warm water moistening simply was impossible to accomplish. If it was not for legends saying that the heaven and earth of the four styles sword was refined using the four styles, perhaps simply everyone would not believe it. Although the four styles school also thought over using other ways to replace it. For example, speaking of Yueke Qiankun and Yueke, one person cultivating two types of refinement styles, then recomposing afterwards. However, this was not something a tool refinement master could finish in one go. After all, not only was the result far from ideal, it was so much so that it was even more ruined. Consequently, for 1,000 years, the four styles school was close to abandoning the four styles refinement. But this Tang Lianxin was truly a tool refinement wizard. Within her notes was an alternate approach, introducing a set of collecting and nurturing the two styles of fire and water. It was actually very simple. Tang Lianxin conversely used the mutual engenderment theory. The experiences of Tang Lianxin in the four styles sect all accumulated the essential components, with the culprit being the mutual engenderment and restraint of wind, thunder, water, and fire. If a cultivator wanted to genuinely refine the four styles in the notes of four schools' deep art, then the most basic foundation of the five elements was important. That was according to the successive mutual engenderment of the four styles theory. For this reason, Tang Lianxin added into the four styles the forgotten style of earth. Consequently, there was this sort of result: earth birthed water, water birthed thunder, thunder birthed fire, fire birthed wind, and wind birthed earth. This way, cultivators completely could grasp this five styles within their bodies, thereby achieving the four styles refinement. It was just that this theory also had a major flaw, that was to, first of all, learn the earth style, earth attribute acting as qi. Using this type to refine divine weapons was nearly an ancient, immemorial, or higher secret technique. It required learning the earth style's difficulties. Not to mention a tool refinement master that had just entered the trade. Even great scholars the likes of Yueke did not have this kind of cultivation method. If it's like this, young lord, Wu Xinjie was exceptionally surprised after looking through its entirety.
N.
I just so happen to have the Earth style. Su Xing nodded. His purple star transforming chi was precisely classified as Earth. Originally, it was a chi flame specially used to refine the heavenly spirit earthly fiend 5-element sword, but now, it seemed to flawlessly match Tang Lianxin's 5 styles mutual engenderment. Su Xing had just entered the school, and after learning how Earth birthed water, the water category of refinement would be achieved. In an accident, Su Xing was about to become the first within the Azure Dragon territory to master the 4 styles refinement in 1,000 years. This Tang Lianxin truly is incredible. Analyzing clearly and logically, he's just like a great scholar. Wu Xinjie looked at the words and felt the owner that wrote this book was diligent and meticulous. It was difficult to imagine this sort of person was a youth that was not even 17 or 18. With this unexpected enlightenment, Su Xing busily considered how he should learn the water style. His current master, Yueke's Heavenly Water Heart Flame, was precisely Supreme Grade Water category. Requesting her to teach him actually was a victory that was close by. When Wu Xinjie saw Su Xing had such a big harvest, she was happy from the bottom of her heart. She suddenly turned, her nephrite, warm fragrance planting onto Su Xing's chest. Both her hands wrapped around his neck like before, her words charming as silk. Young Lord Su Xinjie has something she wants to say. Her soft body rubbed against Su Xing's inner thigh. It made Su Xing somewhat stir. Lowering his head, he saw the girl's flirtatious mien, her limpid and clear eyes. Say what? Su Xing also seized the chance to put the book down and embraced Wu Xinjie. The two taking this position with the woman on top, too, was a very rare intimacy. Wu Xinjie giggled. She leaned close to Su Xing's ear and whispered, her full chest sticking without any restraint to her man's chest. No way. The pleasured Su Xing heard Wu Xinjie's words, and his lust immediately quelled. He looked at Wu Xinjie in astonishment, instantly shaking his head. How could I relax if you went out alone? Su Xing said. As it turned out, Wu Xinjie unexpectedly wanted to advantage of the time Su Xing was cultivating to return to the Azure Dragon territory. In her hand was a 10,000 spirits notice, and upon it was many of Lianxin's secret places, forbidden zones, labyrinths, tombs, lost traces, and such that she carefully recorded. Actually, Wu Xinjie issuing this decision was something she pondered over for a long time. Although she very much loved to stay at Su Xing's side, she also knew that if the future Purple Star birth outline came, she absolutely could not accept doing nothing. The sisters all had something to do, and she could only be unoccupied. At that time, Wu Xinjie wanted to sign a contract with Su Xing because she felt with their perfect combination, they definitely could walk through the labyrinths under heaven. Some of these were labyrinths and forbiddances open specifically for the star duels, secret places, and historical remains in some place that were in some aspect powerful in their own way. Originally, the Heavenly Calamity Talisman was something Wu Xinjie obtained from inside ancient remains. Her plan was good, but Su Xing nevertheless was unable to be at ease to let her leave even though he knew the knowledge star could take care of herself. Little sister Yuan will also go together with Xinjie. The knowledge star said, with the two of us, a few pitfalls and mazes cannot worry us. Young lord, could it be you still do not believe in us? Xinjie, you know it's not that I don't believe in you. How can I let my woman go take chances? Su Xing disagreed. I know young lord's heart aches for us, but Xinjie is young lord's woman as well as his star general. When Wu Xinjie heard Su Xing's words, her heart sweetened. She almost just wanted to stay like this, but the knowledge star knew the star duels were not flirtatious banter, not a problem that tender honey intent could settle. Under Wu Xinjie's soft persuasion, Su Xing gradually was not a match, but a labyrinth's dangers heavily gave him a difficult choice. How about this? At the time you honor and I break open a labyrinth, if we cannot accomplish it, then Xinjie can only obediently stay at young lord's side. All right. Su Xing compromised. The knowledge star, after all, was ranked 3rd. Making her do nothing at all was impossible. Thank you, young lord. Wu Xinjie said sweetly, suddenly exploiting the opportunity to passionately plant her lips onto Su Xing's in a deep kiss. The two's lips sucked at each other, kissing to the limit of sweethearts under heaven. Su Xing's suppressed lust again could not help but surge. Both his hands gently stroked from Wu Xinjia's back downwards, grabbing the girl's 2 soft lumps, his 10 fingers unable to refrain from kneading them. Wu Xinjia panted deeply from Su Xing's pair of evil-doing hands, and she immediately felt a hard object press against her butt. Young lord. Their kiss finished, Wu Xinjia's coquettish glances were like silk, pink with a lustful fragrance. You're always like this, so be careful that someday I will brutally finish you off, Xinjia. Su Xing pinched her soft flesh. Wu Xinjia bit her lower lip, groaning. If young lord wants Xinjia, then take me. How could I do something that would hurt you? Su Xing also knew to endure under his enormous lust. As far as star generals were concerned, the price of losing her virginity was not small. First of all, she would lose her Yuan Yin, 3, and the Star Maiden would lose the star nest coexistence between her and her contractor. Secondly was the response to one another. Finally, her pure Yin would leak, and her star energy would greatly decrease, her vitality greatly harmed. The Star General would also sink into a very long period of poor health. It was not as if there were not any benefits. Reportedly, it could replenish magic losing one's virginity. This, for now at least, was a matter where the gains did not make up the losses. Hearing Wu Xinjia say as such, Su Xing's heart could not help but somewhat receive no small measure of emotional disturbance. After the evil smiting hall phase, Xinjia will then give young Lord Xinjia's virgin body. Wu Xinjia softly said. The two kissed even more passionately. The other sisters in the Immortal's abode had been staring straight at the two's sentimentality in broad daylight. And Suan turned her face away, pretending she saw nothing, whereas Shi Yuan could not take her eyes away. Lin Yingmei was silent, and Yan Yizhen's face was expressionless, her eyes exposing continuous surprise. This deep love of the knowledge star actually made Yan Yizhen feel extreme surprise. The two apparently were somewhat passionate to the depths of the abyss. Shi Yuan watched with wide eyes as Su Xing's hand slid from Wu Xinjia's back into that skirt of hers, and his other hand stretched in from the clothes that were parted away. His hand could not help but slip into the anticipated obstruction, entering a warm place. Wu Xinjia's slender legs tightened. Cough, cough. Shi Yuan was choked by this passion. Ah. Only with this did Wu Xinjia recall there were little sisters here. She immediately bashfully blushed as she buried her face into Su Xing's chest. Su Xing chuckled, drawing out his hands from within her clothes. Elder sister Yingmei, elder sister Yizhen, Suan has found you two are completely able to spar against each other for training. And Suan gently said, tactfully distracting everyone from this awkward mood. The efficacious star's unintentional words actually made Su Xing, Wu Xinjia, and the rest's eyes light up. 5. The sparring between the Majestic star and the Skilful star actually was practicable. Lin Yingmei looked at Yan Yizhen. The indifferent maid then turned her gaze to Su Xing. As you wish, but don't be too overboard, Su Xing said. Between the Majestic star and the Skilful star were a top-quality spear technique and a #1 boxing. It was unknown what kind of spark this would give rise to. Yan Yizhen nodded. Lin Yingmei and Yan Yizhen then stood at two ends, a distance of 100 paces. Lin Yingmei's hands were empty for a moment, and then the Arctic Star Serpent Spear was immediately in hand. Yan Yizhen clenched both her hands and tightened her body. A snow-white thigh stepped out from the fork of her skirt, assuming an attack posture, and the yin-yang Pisces fists appeared. Elder sister Yingmei, pardon me. This one beneath you shall accompany you. Yan Yizhen's foot stepped, and in a split second, she was like the arrow loosed from the bowstring. They only saw the airflow break with a boom. The power of this fist was fierce without rival. Lin Yingmei at the same time skillfully dodged. When she swayed, she incited the Arctic Star Spear to welcome it. Two fists repeatedly boomed. Lin Yingmei flung the cold wind on the spear tip, still breaking open Yan Yizhen's boxing power. Then, With a sudden thrust, the spear was like a lightning bolt, penetrating Yen Yizhen's defenses. The girl's body was knocked onto its back. With a flip, she fell several dozens of meters away. "Hey!" Yen Yizhen immediately rushed, her figure arriving in a blink. The sound of the air ripping apart suddenly magnified, as if it was something created from nothing. Under Yen Qing's increasingly severe boxing, the air seemed to have been torn into pointy sword qi. Several dozen sword qi suddenly filled the space surrounding Lianxin. In the next moment, the sword qi abruptly spun, already swiftly and fiercely cutting. It was just like Lianxin was placed in the center of a grinding machine. The air broke into pieces in an instant. Lianxin's spear unleashed an ice-cold light that immediately blocked this seemingly fierce tipped qi. Those indifferent red pupils immediately arrived in front of her. The cold ice of the left fist and the warm flame of the right fist became yin and yang. When the Pisces circulated, the maid's genuine attack was achieved in one step. Clang clang. The spear shaft blocked the two fists, but the strength on the fists was like a bursting flood, pouring down in torrents. Lianxin's figure immediately slid backwards almost 100 steps. Her figure leapt, and Yen Qing's two fists connected. The yin-yang Pisces burst out and shot towards Lianxin, nearly not giving the Majestic star any chance to gasp for breath. During the time Lianxin waved her spear to cut down this bursting light, the Skilful star's figure was vigorous, flying like a swallow and attacking. She spun to Lianxin's front in an instant, the power of the spurt of energy like a tiger. It was the watching Su Xing could not help but feel worried for Lianxin. The strength of the emotionless maid's attack was indeed suffocating. From the start, her boxing was continuously linked, pressing hard step by step. In the moment she opened wide and closed was great skill and power. Her usual opponent simply did not have time to react. Su Xing thought, the star generals are abnormal. If it was he who fought with Yen Qing, such a powerful boxing closing in on him would be a disaster. Right now, Su Xing actually also inherited Yen Qing's boxing arts. It was truly contrived, and it really did not completely lack resistance. What kind of person was the Majestic Star Panther head? Lianxin's eyes were serious as she confronted the rushing Yen Qing's sluggishness in the air without fluster. Her nimble body beautifully shifted forwards, evading Yen Qing's fist. The Majestic Star slashed at the Skilful star's back, then cut Yen Qing down to the ground. "This one beneath you is much obliged," the panther head coldly shouted. "Disappear, appear." Like the sound of thunder, it swept downwards. A frigid brilliance seemingly tore open an empty space. Too fast. Su Xing and the rest could only feel the sight before them become dazzling. Yen Yizhen retreated backwards, and Lianxin overtook her in an upsurge with an assault that was just like a blizzard. Not hesitating in the slightest, Yen Yizhen's figure suddenly leapt out. In the next moment, she already arrived inside the brutal attack, but when she entered, those apathetic eyes finally showed a trace of astonishment. She discovered Lianxin's Arctic Star spear technique could be rated as extremely perfect, and the penetrating cold that came from all directions made her greatly surprised. The discharge from the spear's tip pressed in from everywhere, making it difficult for Yen Yizhen to stay out of the way no matter how she tried. In the next attack, Lianxin and the spear in her hand together shot towards her opponent. The sound of the air ripping apart with a hum of bees poured into Su Xing and the other's ears. The icy blue light suddenly flashed and extinguished. This vertical slash was swift beyond imagination, and by the time Yen Yizhen felt this was not too encouraging, the spear tip already arrived in front of her. Yen Yizhen's complexion tightened. Her knees bent, and her fists joined. The slashing cold spear stiffly stopped before her eyes. The cold tip on the spear ripped apart a few several hairs of the girl's neat and orderly bangs. Empty hands beat the naked sword. 2. Little sister, you have creativity. Lianxin had difficulty giving praise, lowering her wrist. As far as the Majestic Star was concerned, this kind of empty hands beating the naked sword was far from enough. The Arctic Star Serpent Spear's power fiercely pressed down. The next moment, that clever body technique of the Skilful Star showed a scene that made Su Xing and the others astonished. They saw the maid's body lean left, leaning towards her empty side in a half-spin. A clever escape. She stepped directly on Lianxin's spear, which could be said to be stunning beyond compare. The wanderer Lianxin stepped on the spear, which Lianxin raised. The Skilful Star seized the chance to directly stick herself into the clouds. At the same time, a long and resounding harsh whistling sounded. Furthermore, it rapidly dispersed into the surroundings. She passed a distance of several tens of meters in the blink of an eye. The speed of a white steed flitting past a crack was merely so. In the instant Lianxin lifted her head, Lianxin was just like a heroic fighter. She attacked to her front, both fists repeatedly unleashed. Astonishingly, it was yellow rank boxing. Swallow flash, samsara. Lianxin did not shrink back. Turning her spear sideways, the blizzard continuously revolved in the surroundings. It was long blizzard nights. Each instant the two powerful heavenly star generals intersected was deadly. The shape of the area surrounded by weapon and fist rapidly fluctuated. Occasionally, spear light warped, and occasionally, shadowy fists crossed. Along with the gradual dimming of the star crest on their bodies, at this time, Su Xing, Wu Xinjie, and Suwen and Shi Yuan all did not dare breathe for fear that they would miss all the details. For every place the Arctic Star Serpent Spear's tip swept past, not only was the barely pervasive cold frost even more thick, even the void seemed to have been clogged. The white-hot weapon brought with it a cold wind, seemingly a formless sickle that slashed towards the opposing Lianxin. Even if it was a swift and nimble figure, it could not hide from layers upon layers of a tidal offensive. Lianxin's sudden all-out attack nearly could be said to have no gaps at all. In a split second, Lianxin used the profound steps of the 8 trigrams to avoid that spear's entire attack. Taking advantage of the moment Lianxin stabbed empty space, she flashed to the side of her counterpart's attack, the shadow of her fist unwrapped like a ribbon. However, she was too late in enjoying knocking down the person in front of her when Lianxin's spear tip swept over. This kind of restabilization speed was exceptionally quick. Following the weapon's rapid rotation, the ice-cold spear point drew a straight line that did not run through anything, and it changed into countless circles. The intertwining curves blocked the lights that splashed out from Lianxin's hand. The crisp sounds of the intersections of the Arctic Star Spear and Yin Yang Pisces fists was continuous and unending. There were no gaps or room to turn around. The corner of Lianxin's mouth involuntarily curved while excitement flit across Lianxin's eyes, the two actions bringing out the best in each other. Lianxin contrarily raised a red light against the fist light that dropped from the sky. Countless snowy gusts splashed the moment the weapon collided. The staggered two people once again sunk into a winding battle. The two people in their high-speed mobile warfare sunk into an intense battle, and the entire Immortals' abode saw countless shadowy movements. Seemingly continuous time could not keep up with the pace of the two. It was just like they already approached the 10,000 techniques realm. Skillful star Lianxin's boxing was indeed clever to the peak, but for the battle, in the end, it was the Lianxin Maidens' Majestic star Lianxin of the 5 Tigers General who was even more victorious. When the Arctic Star Serpent Spear pressed against Lianxin's throat, it ended this bout, having let Su Xing feast his eyes on this battle of heavenly stars. And this fighting team did not fail to bring gains to Su Xing. His ocean of consciousness had an even more outstanding understanding towards the fighting style of the Majestic Star and Skillful Star. For the future time he would stay at the Mirror's Flower Stream, Su Xing and the 5 beauties each had their respective assignments. From the hope of that, for styles, he found out from Tang Lianxin, Su Xing began to exert himself on tool refinement and gain some achievement. He strove for the fastest time to settle that aging but beautiful master of his in order to learn the water category refinement technique. As long as he had a few of Wu Tai's notes, Su Xing was not a rookie in the field of tool refinement. He easily passed the most basic tests that took place 3 days later. Just at the time Su Xing began to diligently hide his cultivation tool, those outside mirrors flower streams circulated his famous name everywhere. He had not been at the four-style school for a day, when he controlled more than a dozen flying swords to defeat 10 cultivators at the same stage as he. Furthermore, he made the Ruan Hongxue, who possessed a nebula magic weapon, forced to be humble. Finally, he competed fiercely against the Jiaoshu of the four-style school's 4 great disciples in divine intent, effortlessly defeating him. Su Xing had only come for several days, yet everything that happened caused a sensation in all of the school. It was just like he had become the celebrity that the four-style school chatted about, where even the headmaster was giddy over him. On this night, Su Xing lay face down on the bed, snoring loudly. Suddenly, he felt his arm tighten. Opening his eyes to look, he did not know how, but Tang Lianxin's arms had hugged him. This child actually was very pretty. Su Xing looked over Tang Lianxin's sleeping posture, and it actually had that bit of a petite and exquisite flower fragrance, vermilion cherries with a trace of a taste of intimacy. Su Xing shivered. He had 5 women, so how could he have the intent to be intimate with Tang Lianxin? Could it be possible he had received his feminizing effect? Su Xing pulled out his hand, and right at this time, the star crest on his forehead flashed. He sensed Yuan was calling him, so Su Xing then put on his clothes and very carefully went out the door. Outside the door, Su Xing spotted Wu Xinjie and the others. The moonlight of Mirror's flower stream was shattered to pieces. Within the hazy image, the 5 girls under the moonlight resembled a dreamy fantasy. Each pair of those beautiful pupils flowed with a distinct emotion, but when they saw Su Xing appear, they each simultaneously and spontaneously showed caring and happy expressions. "What's the matter? This late?" Su Xing yawned. Tomorrow he was to prepare to go to the tool refinement mission Yueke arranged. "Young lord, do you still remember your agreement with Xinjie?" Wu Xinjie's smiling face was like a flower. "Xinjie, do you really still want to go to the outside to look for ancient ruins?" Su Xing knit his brow. "But of course. Young lord currently is about to be galaxy stage, yet you do not have any sword arts to use. Xinjie knows several ruins have left behind sword arts." Wu Xinjie earnestly replied. "Actually, we can go together." Su Xing blurted, but he knew it was futile. Wu Xinjie certainly would make him fight for time to cultivate in the Void Immortal's abode and pursue tool refinement. The eve of the start of the Purple Star birth outline was a pivotal point where time could not be wasted. Su Xing then said, "All right then. If Xinjie insists, I won't oppose, but Xinjie wants to make young lord feel relief, right?" Wu Xinjie pursed her lips. Su Xing nodded. "Sister Xinjie has already found a labyrinth. Tonight, we called young lord to go take a look." Sure, Yuan said, pleased with herself. It seemed that finding the labyrinth was her contribution. This island also has a labyrinth on it. Su Xing did not expect Wu Xinjie really could find one. "Wrong, it's not on the island. Rather, it's this sect." Sure, Yuan corrected. Four-style school's rear mountain. This topography stood out from the rest, and the representative 4 styles of wind, thunder, water, and fire were boundlessly carved over the entire mountain. Vividly portrayed, this mountain was an independent existence. Following a stone bridge connection, the surroundings were a 10,000-fathom chasm. The only thing visible was an oil lamp, layer upon layer of yin qi. Past this stone bridge was a spacious plaza. Several dozen statues reaching 4 or 5 meters were placed on both ends of the entrance in succession. Some grasped swords, some were kindly, some were heavily murderous, and some trembled with an immortal's qi. Su Xing could even call out the names of these stone statues. Founding Master, the Taoist Master Qiankun. 3. Second-generation Headmaster, the Taoist Master Qiantian. Third-generation Headmaster. Su Xing was more and more amazed. This was exactly the 4-style school's forbidden zone. Qiankun Tomb. 5. Su Xing had been at the four-style school for not more than 10 days. He did not understand much about the Qiankun tomb, but he nevertheless knew the sole restricted area of the four-style school was this place. Buried here were the successive generations of the four-style school's headmasters and elders. Again, owing to the fact that the four-style school was a tool refinement grade school, the mausoleum was bound to have refined many mechanisms. Reportedly, only the headmaster could know the maze while the average person would enter inevitable death. To Wu Xinjie, however, this tomb could only count as something to prove herself. In addition, there was another very important reason why the Knowledge Star chose the Qiankun tomb, and that concerned a legend of the four-style school's founding master, the Taoist Master Qiankun. This Qiankun tomb reportedly was established in the old days when the Taoist Master Qiankun used his power and died sitting up. Afterwards, the later generations of headmasters and elders would enter this tomb at the time of their death. Every cultivator that entered this tomb would use their powers inside to lay down a mechanism. Therefore, this tomb snowballed into something increasingly large, increasingly complex. But what was slightly strange was that, from the very beginning, the tomb of the Taoist Master Qiankun could not be found in the Qiankun tomb. The legends about him were many. With abilities as powerful as his, the mausoleum mechanisms would be countless, that other people simply could not find it. Furthermore, before the Taoist Master Qiankun died sitting, he suddenly obtained the immortal fruit and ascended to immortal status. Or perhaps he went free and unfettered. In a word, there were all kinds of fantastic theories. You want to find the Taoist Master Qiankun's grave?
Su Xing asked, surprised.
This way can let young lord be at ease, right? Wu Xinjie was fully self-confident, and Suan, on the contrary, was somewhat anxious. But is it not unfindable? Maybe there really isn't one?
No.
There definitely is one. He merely used some kind of ingenious mechanism to hide it. Wu Xinjie giggled. The reason why she was this certain was because the Four Styles School's sect protecting treasure Four Styles Qiankun sword. Originally, the Taoist Master Qiankun exactly used this divine sword that made him famous to cut out his own grave, so there was no way it was not here. Let's go in and take a look. Su Xing knew he was unable to persuade Wu Xinjie. Young lord, just for this time, please do not act. Wu Xinjie smiled. Su Xing nodded. Standing before the tomb and gazing past the plaza, they saw the towering door was simple and unadorned, a long and expansive divine path trailing from the south to the north in a straight direction. The stone persons and beasts on each end were formidable and solemn. Sure, Yuan loathed tombs and such because the Inqi inside was too heavy, nourishing too many ghosts and beasts. And something like the Four Styles Great School's Qiankun tomb perhaps was even more complex. However, she and Wu Xinjie thought the same, and they also wanted to help Su Xing settle a burden. Despite the worry on their faces, they were still determined. When Su Xing saw this, he could not help but smile. Entering the Qiankun tomb's interior, the inside was continuously alight with longevity lanterns. It seemed that not only was the inside not black, it was contrarily relatively brightly lit. These longevity palace lanterns were without odor or flicker. Reportedly, if a particular type of demon beast's oil was taken from the 10,000 li of seabed, it could burn for 1,000 years without going out. For this reason, it was called the 1,000-year lamp, and it could be seen how imposing the Four Styles School previously was. The interior's first and foremost was a wide main hall. The main hall's floor had an Bagua, 2 drawing, with 8 channels each with 8 sliding doors. The door structures had nothing in common with each other. Some had engraved railings and painted ridgepoles with golden jade embellishments. Some had vermilion red liang wood, which emitted a delicate fragrance. Some had penetrating white jade, and some even were ordinary. It was unknown whether the successive generations of cultivators that entered this tomb all were fond of high-ranking decorations or something. The tomb's walled-in path was extremely deep. How many ancestors are buried here? Su Xing thought of this offense. He watched for how Wu Xinjie would go seek out the Taoist Master Qiankun's grave. If she searched alone, perhaps she would not even find daybreak. The knowledge star's brow wrinkled. She took out an ancient book, flipped through some pages, and then spun several circles in the hall. Everyone idly sat to the side with nothing to do. Su Xing was surreptitiously paying close attention, feeling the Bagua diagram below their feet should have some sort of hint. However, searching for this after a long while made him somewhat dizzy. He really was not good at this type of classical riddle situation. Sister Xinjia, why are we staying here? Aren't we going in to look? From what I see, this pathway lined with jade is pretty good. Yuan looked left and right. Her attention had been attracted by a tunnel completely lined with jade. That over there is useless. It does not have the Taoist master Qiankun's grave, for his tomb's concealment should be even more clever.
Wu Xinjie said.
But staying here is also useless, Yuan said. The knowledge star smiled but did not speak. Approximately an oil lamp later, after the knowledge star inspected the 8 tunnels, she finally nodded. Honestly speaking, Su Xing also could not make out what the trick was. The only thing he could discern was that the hall's Bagua diagram and the 8 tunnels were somewhat related. It was just that he was not too clear on what the significance was of this type of concealed relationship. Just as he thought this, Wu Xinjie said, "This tomb concealment is indeed ingenious. Young lord, I have inspected it." Wu Xinjie turned her head and winked. Su Xing smiled, actually quite looking forward to what discoveries she made. He saw Wu Xinjie stand on the Bagua drawing. She meditated briefly, then twirled her hands in the orchid seals. The relief sculpture on the Bagua drawing immediately came alive with changes. Some level and even places gave rise to recesses, while some recesses were then filled in. Su Xing vaguely saw a bit of a clue but was still somewhat unclear. After all, this thing that was the Bagua was not something he had a deep understanding of. And Suan, on the other hand, cried out in surprise. So it turned out to be this. Elder Sister Knowledge Star truly has discerning eyes. Everyone asked her what had happened. Just as Suan was about to respond, Wu Xinjie said, "Young lord, little sisters, come, enter quickly." The group then walked onto the yin-yang diagram. After Wu Xinjie changed the final trigram, an inconceivable thing happened. When the yin-yang symbol in the center of the Bagua changed, it moved left and right, and the entire yin-yang symbol immediately caved inward. "How did you figure this mechanism out?" Su Xing asked in admiration. "What profound theory does that Bagua have?" That Bagua seems ordinary at first glance, but its positions are actually incorrectly arranged. Wu Xinjie explained. As it turned out, when they first entered the main hall, Wu Xinjie saw the profound theory of the Bagua picture. As a result, in order to solve the concealed contents, did they stop over at the hall. Brute force did not trump those that used their heads, and this actually let her discover a place that stood out from the rest. Stood out from the rest? Everyone was startled because they completely were unable to make out anything that stood out. The 8 doors used different materials in their construction, but each type of material actually represents one type of the 8 trigram's properties. For example, the splendid gold jade's representative gold wood category is for Qian and Dui. 3. Liang wood naturally represents wood, Zhen and Sun. What lacked any decorations was earth, Kuan and Zhen. 5. As far as water and fire, that was harder to guess. Water's aspect was a white jade carving of a type of water flower, and the fire door had an extra longevity lamp. These seemingly were insignificant, but in the knowledge star's eyes, they immediately turned into a complete Bagua diagram. But this still did not count as anything. Even more awesome was that Wu Xinjie noticed the main arrangement of the Bagua on the main hall's floor. If the Bagua doors were looked at from the arrangement of the Bagua, that main hall clearly did not adhere to the rules. This was the abnormality. As far as Wu Xinjie was concerned, this was the mechanism. What came after was very simple. She only needed to change the hall's Bagua to that arrangement of the Bagua doors, but she did not expect this mechanism would actually open. After hearing Wu Xinjie's explanation, everyone truly prostrated themselves in admiration. Without first mentioning the level of genius in the arrangement of this Bagua mechanism, the Bagua diagram on the hall's floor were very familiar. Without outstanding insight, how could anyone spot whatever was incorrect? Only Wu Xinjie could achieve this without difficulty. No wonder those cultivators couldn't find it. If anyone arranged for their tomb to be beneath the mausoleum, who could think of that? Su Xing sighed. The girls deeply believed this was so. If it was not for the knowledge stars exceeding insight and scholarship, the Four Styles School would have difficulty thinking of this even if given 1,000 years. Is there really another tomb down below? Sure, Yuan was anxious. Be careful, Su Xing said, holding her hand to comfort the thief star. Very quickly, they fell to the bottom, and sure enough, there was a completely different world below. When Su Xing and the rest stepped off the yin-yang picture, it slowly rose and sealed the exit. The underground cavern was dim beyond compare. Su Xing lit a Taoist light talisman. The light talisman shone. Dang dang dang. 6. They saw a more than 100 square meter hall. The longevity lanterns long ago had went out, but the surrounding walls' brilliance clearly were meticulously filled in by people. There was a large door. This young lady will go see if there are any mechanisms. Sure, Yuan jumped down. Having received Su Xing's encouragement, she had a lot of courage. The thief star's body techniques hid, and she secretly entered the air. Ah! In an instant, they had Sure Yuan shriek. Su Xing's heart tightened, and he immediately rushed over. How could he expect Sure Yuan would right away run out from that door, all of a sudden throwing herself into Su Xing's chest? Yuaner, what is the matter?
Wu Xinjie said.
Rustling. They saw a dark red centipede, 10 times the normal size, climb out. With sharp saw teeth, 1 meter in length, that 100 feet of pitch black and complete red was exceedingly terrifying. Ah, it's 100 corpse centipedes. 7, Wu Xinjie shouted. Su Xing had not yet figured out what the 100 corpse centipede was, that it deserved Wu Xinjie's fear when in the next second, that 100 corpse centipede promptly displayed its terrifying side. The 100 corpse centipede's 100 feet trembled, and thousands upon hundreds of small centipedes the length of fingers shot out like rain. The 100 corpse centipede was categorized as a type of ancient demon insect. It lived beneath the ground, feeding on rocks and earth, using yin qi as nutrition. It could easily breach any cave, and its body reportedly had millions of larvae. With a tremble of its 100 feet, it got its name from the seeming torrential downpour. In the event these centipedes made contact, they would immediately drill into a person's skin and eat them clean. In addition, this 100 corpse centipede had been nourished by yin qi. Its attacks were specialized nasty artifacts and cultivation methods. Usual methods would have difficulty protecting against these. Also, owing to the fact they were underground, their attacks would be even more frightening. However, with regards to Su Xing, these were not things to be scared of at all. His hand shook, about to use the blooming water divine thunder to cleanly smite them. Big brother, allow little sister. And Suan abruptly said. Lin Yingmei, Yan Yizhen and the rest halted their attacks. They saw and Suan beckon with her finger, and more than 60 jade lights flashed. They rolled in their surroundings, forming an essence qi defense. Those small centipedes of the 100 corpse centipede were incapable of penetrating it, blocking them with a pitter-patter. What formed the defensive barrier was not just anything, it was precisely the ancient monsters, essence-swallowing dragons. Compared to the essence-swallowing dragons, the 100 corpse centipede simple was not on the same level. Devour. And Suan angrily said. The essence-swallowing dragons suddenly parted. Just like crashing storm winds, they engulfed their way over. The spawn of the 100 corpse centipede that covered filled the overhead were instantly eaten clean. Once they were eaten, several essence-swallowing dragons unexpectedly divided and propagated. The ancient yin qi the 100 corpse centipede stored underground actually was a top-notch delicious snack for the essence-swallowing dragons. Compared to using every kind of suppressing evil gem bamboo ranked spirit qi from before to cultivate them, this speed was far faster. It was like discovering a treasure, so the essence-swallowing dragons ate even more cheerfully. More and more 100-corpse centipedes crawled out. Very quickly, the 100 square meters hall was crammed with the centipedes' disgusting corpses. They formed a dense mass which would make the blood of people run cold upon looking at it. How could there be this many? Yuan had goosebumps. If this place really is the Taoist master Qiankun's tomb, then at the very least, it has been more than 1,000 years since then, Su Xing said. Thinking about it was enough to make him shiver. A tomb that was hidden for 1,000 years had been opened, and they did not know how many bugs or animals were nourished. If it was not for Insuin with the essence-swallowing dragon's mutual restraint, perhaps this trip to the tomb would indeed be hard to say. Everyone kept close against Insuin's back while the efficacious star's white hand beckoned. The cyan storm was unstoppable as it swept through the black centipedes. Fortunately, the essence-swallowing dragons was the nemesis of the 100-corpse centipedes. For the same category of ancient-period demon bugs, the 100-corpse centipedes, that qi that was stored for 1,000 years was simply a delicacy. It was as if a hurricane of green shadows flowed out like quicksilver, making these 100-corpse centipedes basically unable to have a position to use their powers. For the sake of preventing these 100-corpse centipedes from seizing a chance to flee, Su Xing also unceremoniously used the 5 spirits blooming water immortals technique. His fingers released purple thunder talons that pinned all of them. Approximately several oil lamps later, the hall's black waves finally receded. And at this time, the essence-swallowing dragons increasingly expanded, just as if they already had more than 200 in number. Their movements already vaguely had the power of a dragon of legend, and using them right now, they were sufficient to be used for battle. Among them were several whose figures were brightly lit like green jade, with the hidden form of 2 wings. Clearly, there was a trend in rank advancement. Everyone was astonished. They did not expect the tomb Wu Xinjia inadvertently opened would unexpectedly bring such a large benefit. Suin also had unending admiration in the excitement in her eyes. She had cultivated the essence-swallowing dragons for so long, and now they at long last could lend Big Brother a helping hand. Let's go in and take a look. Su Xing was all the more curious as he walked into that sliding door. Inside was another expansive main hall. He saw upon the cattail platform was a pale white skeleton, its 2 hands frozen in a hand seal. It sat upright, its body draped in a Qiankun Bagua robe. Everyone immediately increased their pace. They only saw an illusory Bagua array pictograph suddenly appear before their eyes. This place has a Bagua terror-inflicting array. Yuan said in an alarmed voice. She had not finished speaking when the hall's scenery suddenly changed. A vast expanse of white smoke abruptly billowed and covered all directions in a confusion. Lianxin promptly took out the Arctic Star Serpent Spear, and Yan Yizhen also tightly clenched her yin-yang Pisces fists. Su Xing asked, "What does this Bagua terror-inflicting array do?" It releases 8 types of defensive jinns. As long as these 8 types of jinns are struck into the corresponding position they represent, they will disappear. Wu Xinjie took the place of Yuan's reply. Right, however, this kind of Bagua terror-inflicting array is generally used to test people. Why would it be arranged in a tomb? Tombs at the very least should be using that kind of fiend array. Yuan was confused. It's just kill to break the array.
What is hard about this?
Lianxin's voice was cold. The 8 Bagua jinns successively appeared from within the fog. Their hands held maces, 2 swords, sabers, hatchets, and every sort of sharp weapon. Draped in golden mail, they were like divine warriors. Lianxin attacked her way into 3 Bagua jinns without the slightest hesitation. Carrying her spear, her thrust was of startling rainbow, piercing sun. 3. She stabbed the Bagua jinn that bore the brunt backwards more than 10 paces while the other 2 jinns raised their hammer and hatchet, rushing to sweep at Lianxin. The Arctic Star Serpent Spear lowered, and Lianxin exerted her strength to leap above the jinns. She turned, and her spear's power heavily slashed down. She hacked a Bagua jinn down onto the ground, and in midair, she relied on the snow-winged belly band to loftily drop like a swallow. Gracefully, she evaded the other jinn's chops. The one representing the Blee of Fire opened its parasol, and flames gushed out, burning at the group. Su Xing shouted, both hands fiercely launching a blooming water divine thunder. The divine thunder purple cloud encircled and blocked the intensity of the fire. The ones that represented the Bijan, 5 of thunder, and the Dui, 6 of lake, each struck with their sword and saber. Several threatening thunderclaps or black water marshes swept over. The indifferent Yan Yizhen's fists pushed with open palms, removing the clap of thunder. The corners of the maid's skirt fluttered, and the crimson tattoo on her snow-white back glittered. In the midst of her rocking, she jumped above the black water, attacking. The Qian, 7 of water, let out severe floods and fierce beasts. 8, the Zhen, 9 of earth and the sun, 10 of wind either quaked the earth or sent sand flying, forcing Su Xing and the rest back continuously. The Bagua terror-inducing array was a frightful magic circle. The Bagua jinns each had conspicuous abilities, and the 5 spirits' magic was more and more emergent. The strongest among them was actually the 2 Bagua jinns that did not have magic, the Qian of heaven and the Kuan of earth. However, they possessed remarkable powers, and their martial strength was super powerful. Fighting with Lianxin, it was unclear who held the advantage. Su Xing raised the protective earth shield to defend the 3 girls Wu Xinjie and Suwen and Yuan. Afterwards, he tossed the heaven sword, controlling the sword to go slashing. When this young lady gets out, she definitely will manufacture a set of this type of Bagua puppets. Yuan saw this type of situation and produced an exciting idea. Wu Xinjie, nevertheless, was not true about her words. She had already agreed to not let Su Xing act, but in the end, it still fell into this kind of situation, which made the knowledge star depressed from her heart.
Boom.
A massive noise from within the square. The Zhen Jin suddenly soared high into the air. Lianxin's spear unexpectedly raised this Jin up. Her power really was this valiant, which was absolutely stupefying. Ingmei, only by throwing it into the corresponding Bagua position can you kill it, Wu Xinjie shouted loudly. The Majestic star loudly yelled. Lianxin's spear flung, and this Zhen Jin was thrown onto the corresponding Bagua position. Immediately afterwards, she leapt to slash. The Arctic star serpent spear directly connected with the Zhen, eliminating it. The sound of a fire snake whistling rose, and Lianxin retreated backwards. The Li whirled its parasol, both arms bringing together a fire python. The spear's tip broke through, the girl's appearance vigorous. The powerful Qian powerfully slashed with its 18 weapons. A huge sword cut it down. Then, a more than 1 meter thick purple thunder python immediately bit and retrieved the huge sword. The one who acted was exactly Su Xing. Without stopping for any rest, Su Xing's palms clenched, and the purple thunder python boomed. The Qian was beat back continuously. Lianxin took advantage of this to cut open its attack. The Arctic star serpent spear directly attacked onto the Li, and the fire net broke, layer after layer, as the cold light brushed over its figure. Immediately, the Li similarly also turned into fire and smoke that dissipated when it fell onto its Bagua position. Yan Yizhen also stalled 2 Bagua jinns, which were the Zhen and Dui. The former moved layer upon layer of huge rocks to pound at her, but the maid's fist broke through and startled heaven. The Zhen also collapsed into pieces under Yan Yizhen's fist. The Dui let out 1,000 caddies of heavy water, but the maid was light as a feather, very quickly turning it into a sacrificial victim as well. The remaining 4 Bagua jinns were the Qian, Kuan, Kan, and Sun. Kan held a green banner, its right hand violently raised. Green shadows trembled for a few moments, and a massive, shining lance of pitch black already appeared in its hand. It was no less than 2 zhang in length. Suddenly, with a huge noise like a thunderclap, the Kuan threw the green lance towards Wu Xinjie and the rest. The water in its hand became a lance, already changing into lightning as it madly pounced at Wu Xinjie. A sharp, ear-piercing noise immediately ripped apart the atmosphere of the world. The the surrounding airflow instantly affected by this immense strength. The earth's shield shook. 2 flying claws at a glittering 1-star shot out from the shield and grabbed the dancing green banner of the Kansas. "Watch this, young ladies," Yuan shouted. Wu Xinji also was unwilling to wait for death like this. When the can was thrown backwards, she threw out a talisman. The talisman turned into a rolling black wind. Yuan flew up, and the 2 claws dragged the can into its place. Then, under the ruthless attack of the star weapons of 3 girls, the can stepped into trailing dust. A violent wind like a blade. The sun's hand danced wildly, blowing sand in bursts. It was not able to sustain itself for too long under Su Xing's blooming water divine thunder and heaven sword, and it became the 6th to disappear into thin air. The last remaining were Qian and Qiankun. One possessed remarkable abilities, excellent in 8 kinds of military skills. The latter was impervious to sword and spear, impenetrable by water and fire. It indeed made the 6 people feel a headache. However, any way the 6 looked at these 2, victory was already at hand. Due to Wu Xinjie and Suan and Yuan's control and obstruction of Qian, Su Xing, Lianxin and Yan Yizhen then went to handle Qian. The Qian changed into 3 heads and 6 arms. Its spear, sword, saber, pestle, and the rest waved in a flurry. Su Xing's figure did a reverse bend in midair, dodging the Qian's 2 weapons. Once again speedily drawing close to it, Lianxin and Yan Yizhen simultaneously used their weapons to hold back the Qian's counterattack. That frightening attack seemed to airtight, but this time it was easily broken by Su Xing. One hand captured the Qian's shoulder while the other already firmly struck it. Within the ear-piercing booming noise, it was the first time Su Xing showed off a fierce boxing that was exactly just like Yan Qing's. Both his hands were just like flipping flour, unceasingly flickering over the Qian's body. In a short time, its attack had been broken through, and the Qian's completely lost its proper evasion reactions. However, Su Xing's boxing alone was far from being able to bring a threat. When Su Xing withdrew his suppressive assault on the Qian, Lianxin then waved her spear. The spear's light tore, and it madly slashed as if to pierce the sun and break the moon. When the Qian again went to obstruct Lianxin, its defense towards Yan Yizhen over there completely collapsed. Afterwards, what happened was very simple. An ice-cold intent appeared on Yan Yizhen's face. Her 2 hands contained powerful strength, and she completely did not hesitate to use Swallow Flash Samsara. Under an assault that stuck to its body like this, the Qian's powerful corpse became just like a decoration. Not a teacup later, the final 2 Bagua Jins, Qian and Qian, simultaneously disappeared. The Bagua diagram flashed and shattered, the white fog at last dispersing. How could this place have this kind of people probing magic circles? Wu Xinjie was unable to understand. Yuan excitedly said, "Who cares?" But this young lady already wonders how to make an unrivaled Bagua puppet. After the white fog passed, the main hall was the way it was before. The only difference was that they unwittingly walked out 100 steps. Su Xing was not without caution as he sized up this room. The room was approximately 100 square meters. The walls all around were engraved with many incomprehensible relief sculptures and characters. This tomb had a carved stone monument. The topmost platform was a praying mat platform. The surroundings were arranged with porcelain bottles, calligraphy and paintings, and burned-out aromatic stands. 1,000 years had passed, yet it seemed to be as peaceful as yesterday. On this praying mat, they saw a white skeleton, its hands bound in a seal. It sat cross-legged with a purple Qiankun robe draped over it. It wore an absolute ultimate purple gold crown, making them feel auspicious and peaceful. Suddenly, there was an intent to not disturb it. Could this be? Lianxin wrinkled her brow. Taoist Master Qiankun. Su Xing spat these 4 words. Ah. The girls all looked at each other in dismay, and Wu Xinjie even somewhat had not returned to her senses. Just this easily, they found the Taoist Master Qiankun's resting place. This is really the Taoist Master Qiankun's? Yuan asked, surprised. It is written very clearly on the front. Su Xing indicated towards that slab of a stone monument in the room. Written upon it from the beginning were the two words, a chance. Below were an additional few rows of inscriptions. The characters carved on the steel wound and twisted, written in a forceful hand. It showed the carver's capabilities that were at the pinnacle of perfection, and the steel's inscription was not carved with any sort of tool. When the pen flowed, it flowed smoothly, as if Songjia were creating characters, profound and mysterious. Wu Xinjie looked and nodded. The Wind Divine Carving, 2, of the legendary Four Styles School founder Qiankun's Four Styles refinement was comprehended to the highest levels. Everyone curiously looked at the inscriptions. The inscription was written thus: Bagua sets the Qiankun for styles all same schools. The mundane enters my gatekeeper, the heart's wisdom births chance. Sarira, 3, confers wisdom root, creative heaven astral winds bestowed. This secret raises 4 styles, our self passes to eternity. The inscription was very short, yet the meaning was completely simple. More or less it said, as long as the 4 styles school disciples undid the Bagua, then this Taoist master's tomb could be found. After that time, because of the heart's wisdom and resourcefulness of that disciple, a chance would be obtained. This Taoist master will grant unto him a Sarira, presenting to him the Qian heaven astral winds. Use this Taoist name to raise this sect. Our self can serve contributions of 1,000 years, fame leaving behind these annals. Wu Xinjie explained. This really was the Taoist master's resting place.
Ah.
What kind of things are the Sarira and the creative heaven astral winds? Yuan was muddled. Is it this? Lin Mei said as she all of a sudden pointed at the skeleton that died sitting. Su Xing and the rest shifted their gazes over and discovered after a search that an azure pearl was hidden on the skeleton. It was like jade yet not like jade, like stone yet not like stone. Su Xing held it in his hand, and he suddenly thought of something. From his person, he took out another pearl that bore a close resemblance, just that it was red in color. Sarira? Su Xing looked at Wu Xinjie. Though Xinjie has heard of Buddhist Sariras, but those are multicolored. They are not like this. The knowledge star did not understand. The efficacious star suddenly recalled something, shouting in amazement. Could it be that 5 spirits magic Sarira? The efficacious star seemed considerably shocked. 5 spirits magic Sarira?
Wu Xinjie was blank.
Seeing that everyone was baffled, and Suan swallowed and explained, the 5 spirits magic Sarira is a legendary tool refinement master's highest product. The most top-notch tool refinement master on his deathbed can urge the true flame in his body to concentrate the best feature of his body into a single piece. This is the 5 spirits magic Sarira. This kind of 5 spirits magic Sarira is made with the heart blood of a top-notch tool refinement master, and it could be said to be an item anyone would yearn for day and night. Of course, this sort of 5 spirits magic Sarira was not that easy to find. Only those pinnacle tool refinement masters that willingly produced it could work, and in the case this tool refinement master did produce it, then he would have reached the end of his life. It could be said that the tool refinement master traded his life for it, and it would not necessarily be produced every time. The 5 spirits magic Sarira was even more legendary than the Buddhist Sarira. Once, the Crystal Dragon King's palace came out with a 5 spirits magic Sarira, and its worth in gold was more than 100 billion liang. When Su Xing finished listening, he was shocked. Isn't that saying this type of Sarira could change a rookie into a tool refinement scholar? Besides tool refinement skill, not at the level of a great scholar's, using it for a tool refinement's pinnacle true flame is very much on the level of a great scholar.
Wu Xinjie said.
A tool refinement master's true flame needed to accumulate 100 years be able to refine a 5 spirits magic Sarira. Its power naturally could be imagined. How very defiant of the natural order. Su Xing clicked his tongue.
So terrifying.
Then Su Xing can become a great scholar after refining it? Yuan blinked, somewhat excited. Is this also a 5 spirits magic Sarira? Su Sheng held up the red pearl and asked. This piece was obtained from Yueke Qingshan, meaning he also was a peak tool refinement scholar. And Suan examined it and drew in a breath of cold air. She looked at Su Sheng in disbelief. Big brother, you perhaps are this world's most envied person. This is a 5 spirits magic Sarira. From the color, it seems to be fire type. The Taoist Master Qiankun's is wind?
Yes.
With things like this, Master having 2 Sariras of fire and wind is equivalent to a tool refinement scholar. Yan Yizhen stared blankly. However, refining it requires time. But if Big Brother wants to master the 4 styles refining, it can actually save much time. And Suan said, if they proceeded, Su Sheng's 5 styles would have the 3 types of earth, fire, and wind. If only he mastered water and thunder, then it would be settled. The form was not just very good, it was a major good. And where is that creative heaven astral wind art? Lin Yingmei asked. Right under your nose. Su Sheng looked all around the walls. The complex and cryptic relief sculptures like tadpoles on the wall were densely packed and decorated the entire room. Everything on these? Shi Yuan's eyes spun. He made things so troublesome, and for what? This also is probably a test. Wu Xinjie guessed. The Bagua mechanism of a tomb hidden underground, or the Bagua terror inflicting array just now. Perhaps the Taoist Master Qiankun wanted to choose someone that, regardless of the root of wisdom, was a disciple whose capabilities that were outstanding to inherit his creative heaven astral winds. In addition, the characters on this wall were the final hoop. If these writings were ignored, even if the 5 spirits magic Sarira was obtained, it could not display its effects. To Su Sheng, this was not a difficult problem. The heart-like mirror absolute sincerity soul technique broke, and those complex characters were projected into his ocean of consciousness. In an instant, the incantation upon it appeared line by line. Su Sheng hurriedly memorized it, discovering that besides the creative heaven astral winds secret, the entire room's script had additionally hidden an innate Qiankun escape technique. 5. Disciple Su Sheng. Though the 4 styles school cannot guarantee that it can bring you to the height of your development, it will exhaust everything it can. 6. Su Sheng carefully bowed towards the Taoist Master Qiankun 3 times with his arms held in front of him. The Taoist Master Qiankun, putting so much consideration into this, had made him moved. After reigniting the longevity lamps in this grave, only then did Su Sheng and the girls leave this quiet tomb. Just as they left, the Taoist Master Qiankun's remains turned to dust. As if his wish was satisfied, he did not leave even the slightest trace. Coming out of the Bagua diagram, it was just like a century had passed. Su Sheng slightly sighed. Originally, he only wanted to let Wu Xinjie sound out the difficulties and retreat after finding how things really were, but who would have that? Not only did they accidentally find the Taoist Master Qiankun's tomb, they also obtained the heaven and wind relics as well as the heaven and wind arts, the innate Qiankun escape technique. Even more gratifying was that in Suan's essence swallowing dragons also finally reached more than 150 in number. How is it? Su Sheng solving the labyrinth has brought many benefits. Shi Yuan excitedly said. This time, Sister Xinjie, and I can go all out, right? Su Sheng was just about to reply when an escape light shook straight from the sky. The girls immediately entered the star nest upon seeing this, and Su Sheng inwardly said, "Shit," still deferentially going up to greet him. "It's you?" The one who came was not just anyone, but precisely the 4 styles school headmaster, the Taoist Master Xuantian. "How are you here?" The Taoist Master Xuantian's eyes revealed confusion. Disciple passed by this place and thought something happened when he saw 2 senior brothers fall asleep. Thus disciple entered the tomb. Su Sheng said. Only when the Taoist Master Xuantian sensed a difference in the Qiankun tomb did he rush over, and, hearing Su Sheng's explanation, sure enough, the mountain-guarding disciples had fallen asleep. "Do you not know this is a forbidden area?" The Taoist Master Xuantian wrinkled his brow. A brief moment of anxiety made disciple forget. Disciple willingly accepts punishment. Su Xing sincerely said. What did you find? The Taoist Xiantian did not acknowledge, but asked another question. Su Xing shook his head. Disciple did not dare blaspheme, and did not stop over for long.
N.
In the future, make no further mention of this matter. Go back first. Afterwards, there will not be anything special. Entering the forbidden area of the Qiankun Mound, excusing the fact that you are a disciple that has just entered the school, this incident will be overlooked.
Do not do this again.
Disciple solemnly obeys these instructions. Su Xing repeatedly thanked. Just as he prepared to leave, the Taoist master Xiantian suddenly recalled something, saying, Su Xing, follow this headmaster while. Su Xing was puzzled and saw the Taoist master Xiantian struck his magic energy to rouse the sleeping disciples. His riding sword then flew towards Pure Heart Peak, which Su Xing followed. Su Xing, how are your recent tool refinement studies? Have you encountered difficult problems? The Taoist master Xuantian's voice that was neither too fast nor too slow appeared in Su Xing's ears. Many thanks for headmaster's concern. Master has treated disciple very well.
N.
The Taoist master Xuantian's tone was profound. Ever since you arrived, this headmaster has not been this lively in a very long time. Disciple has been unreasonable. Su Xing knew he was speaking of the matters these past few days. He had heard that Ruan Hongxue was the Taoist master Xuantian's granddaughter. He had bullied her like that, so he did not know whether or not that uncivilized girl went and grumbled to the headmaster. The Taoist master Xiantian did not show any intent to take anything out on Su Xing. His face carried a slight smile, seemingly as if he was somewhat lamenting while brimming with a trace of joy. The sect has always needed a little energy, so long as everything is within the old generation. This headmaster did not know if he was in his declining years and saw many things had opened. With regards to the matter of Hongxue, she is indeed too tsundra. Your chastisement was very correct. Disciple does not dare do it the next time. No need to be this reserved. This headmaster actually wanted to rely on you to correct her tsundra temperament.
Ha, 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 ha. Her age is also not small anymore.
If this headmaster could obtain a grandson while he still had life, then that would be pretty good. 7. Young lord would not fancy that little girl at all. Sure, Yuan was displeased. Su Xing blushed with shame, feeling that this headmaster had the intent to act as a go-between. The Taoist master Xiantian very quickly flew to the headmaster's building and invited Su Xing to enter. Su Xing did not know what he wanted to do, but the master of the magnificent four-style school was unlikely to hurt him. The headmaster's pavilion was decorated with an old elegance, and the Taoist master Xiantian directly brought Su Xing to a secret room. He saw the bookshelves inside this secret room crisscrossed, completely filled with books and works. This headmaster sees your cultivation has reached Nebula Peak and should be entering Galaxy Stage. The Taoist master Xiantian only then stated his intent. He warmly smiled. Su Xing, have you considered what sword art to cultivate? Although this headmaster is declining, and neither is this a sword-cultivating great sect, we have previously gathered many sword arts. You can choose any two from here to go practice. Su Xing was stunned. Although you have only entered this sect for 10 days, this Taoist master treats you like his own disciple. Since you are quickly about to reach Galaxy Stage, this sword art should be granted unto you by this headmaster, as it should be by rights. Su Xing clearly understood. It seemed this four-style school indeed was declining in power. He had not reached Galaxy Stage, yet he had roped in the headmaster like this. If it was any other great sect, it would simply be a matter of he being under the banner of a master. How could he be worthy of a headmaster's worry? Thinking back to the Taoist master Qiankun's grave, Su Xing secretly sighed. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.